And welcome back to This Is Dunder Moose. I know there's a lot going on right now. I know there's an election and everybody's all hot and bothered about Super Tuesday. I know people are worried about Marty O'Donnell and running for Congress. I know that there's a sweet baby thing going on. None of it matters. This is where it's at tonight. I am so thrilled to bring you my next guest. This is Moundshroud, the genius, the madman behind BrOVENLOFT, and I have been itching to get you on, bro. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on here. And we got some stuff to get to the bottom of. The reason I'm so hyped for this, y'all, is this was my first inkling of the BrOSR. I was on Twitter and I started seeing this hashtag BrOVENLOFT and reading these just crazy accounts of what was going on. And I was like, what is this? You know, I was kind of a Johnny come lately. I'd only been playing 5e for about a year. And I started seeing like these anecdotal reports of things that were just blowing my mind. And it's like, here's this group called the BrOSR. They're having the times of their lives. They're making everybody angry. And it culminates in this October event. So, Moundshroud, if you'd be so good, I wonder, during this time when you were running this, how did you, because I don't, some of my audience are very familiar. I see a bunch of people in the chat that like were part of it. But how did you explain BrOVENLOFT to the people in your life while this was going on?
Well, boys and ghouls, it's a wonderful March to discuss October stuff. So yeah, no. How do I explain BrOVENLOFT? Well, I didn't explain it to people I knew in real life. I mean, I just
not worth it.
Not worth it. They wouldn't understand. It's just I didn't understand. I didn't understand what I was doing half the time. It was mostly reacting to everything. But BrOVENLOFT was. Oh boy, BrOVENLOFT. I guess we can begin at the beginning.
It was a Braunstein.
It was a Braunstein, not a battle Braunstein, although it kind of had one.
Yeah,
it kind of had one.
Well, so I'm a blank slate here. Like I've tried to go back and find out about it. There's no session reports. It was all on Twitter. And when Elon bought it and turned it into X, like he kind of deleted a bunch of old stuff, and I feel like a lot of the historical record has now kind of.
Well, I mean, some people just deactivated those accounts that they were involved with because a lot of BrOVENLOFT was very public facing, and that was where a lot of the not all, but a lot of like the inter-party mechanics between the patrons. That's where they aired their beefs out. That's where they found beefs and reasons to fight each other. Most notably, like the Elf King and Gangsta Rapper were rhyming at each other for like a month before the event kicked off. And
this isn't a first
there
edition.
You go.
This is not a first edition. It doesn't have like the wrapped up mummy with the shades on it, but this is available to purchase, an artifact from BrOVENLOFT. This is the relics of the Gangsta 16 inspiring diss tracks. And I don't know if that's going to zoom in. Crazy stuff, hilarious stuff.
The only BrOVENLOFT merch is a record of shit talking. That's the only merch for BrOVENLOFT. Is shit talk. That's it. There's not stats. It's not anything. The stats are pretty much anything you could find in the one in first and second edition monster manuals. Gangsta Rapper was a greater mummy from Ravenloft.
Yeah.
There you go. You want to stand up Gangsta Rapper? There you go. He's a greater mummy from 2E.
Let's start at the beginning. There was a lot of stuff upstream of BrOVENLOFT. Some of the most legendary D&D that I think there's ever been played.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you had multiple 1-to-1 tables. It was like, the way I think of it is like a Marvel versus DC crossover event, where things were happening that impacted all of the tables involved. And it led, you can watch some of it on Mr. Wargaming's channel. John Mollison, he was in charge of playing out a space battle that happened as a result of a certain sword being thrown into the sun. Long story. I think we've gone over some of it on this channel.
Yeah, that sword being thrown into the sun was part of Operation Muscle Thunder over in
Okay.
B-Dubs' Axe campaign.
So Muscle Thunder was the name of the operation to rid the world
of Stormbringer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Because B-Dubs was in because this was also that same year. This was 2022. So B-Dubs in the summer was looking for some patrons. And I volunteered because I had a patron faction called Frogtown in the Burning Sands campaign.
Okay.
Which was it was a desert campaign, so I was a desert swamp.
Who was running Burning Sands?
That was Brain Leakage.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan Davis, Brain Leakage. Great
so
guy.
All this stuff is upstream of when I started paying attention.
Yeah, it's a bizarre cascade effect that led to BrOVENLOFT because I was also in Trellopolis in 2020. I wasn't like one of the first people in Trellopolis.
Okay.
Like I wasn't there for like the Apaches versus Orcs fight that they were so proud of. Like that was before my time, but I did. Well, I was present in the sessions in Trellopolis that caused Stormbringer to end up in B-Dub's campaign.
Okay.
With a different character. So I was tracking this sword kind of across dimensions.
I don't know. I don't know if we can get into this without just doing a little bit of a setup. So,
God, yeah.
For those that are not tracking, Jeffro Johnson, he got bullied into playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition by a guy named Mephrodis, and said, "You got to play it by the rules, all the rules, even
all the
weird ones
rules that you ignored." Yep.
That everybody left behind." And so we started doing that, and they were having these. You can read all about it on Jeffro's blog. And then at one point, the idea of player-led NPCs, patrons, if you will, came in where it was like, I can't keep track of all the loose threads because you guys start something and then you ignore it and you go somewhere else. And then, so he had all these NPCs and he said, I'm just going to give them to players. And it took over the campaign and it wrecked. Like, this is why like a lot of BrOSR guys are so no prep, because once you put this mojo into it, it is impossible to predict what will happen.
How can you?
Exactly.
It's like those old World War II manuals, like talking about the American, like the Germans couldn't prepare for the Americans because the Americans weren't even sure what they were going to be doing in battle. So it's like, all right, how do you prep that?
Long story short, sometimes the DM has to flail about, and Jeffro has a good store of lore to flail from, having written a book called Appendix N, which is his write-up of a bunch of the works that inspired Gary for First Edition. And so sometimes, he would say like, well, there's guard, and they report to the prince, and they're like, who's this prince? And then he just describes Elric of Mount Libene. And then all of a sudden Elric's in the game now. And now you can put one of your friends in charge of Elric, and they get to role play Elric in charge of a city.
Yep.
Right.
And then Elric gets killed by lightning bolts and dinosaurs in the jungle, and a druid of questionable motivations, ethics, and soundness of mind absconds with it,
but symmetry of name,
and disappears it. Yeah.
Fluid the druid
for several years, and it just kind of sits hidden for several years, real time, until it resurfaced.
Right. And so the sword causes problems. It's from Michael Moorcock's fiction, and it's not just a sword. It can suck the soul out of whoever it touches. And I'm not sure all the problems that it caused, except that I knew that it was enough trouble that it somehow, the players in Trellopolis decided, we don't want this to be our problem anymore, and we're going to planar shift it over to Dubzaron.
Well,
were you around for that part of it?
Oh yeah, no. Well, I saw the planar shift. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was originally like Macho Mandolf had assembled a military strike force because the sword was in the hands of what we thought was the sorceress come back. Yes. But it was actually, I believe, a Tanari.
I'm not sure what that is.
It's the snake the demon from first edition and everything.
Okay.
The 6 arms, the hot chick upper body, snake lower body.
Gotcha.
Bad news.
Yeah.
Bad news. Yeah, the Monolith. Sorry, yeah, the Monolith. Thank you, Authoritative News Network.
All right. So
And so
she's
yeah,
got it.
she's got it, and she's a problem, right? And we thought she was the sorceress from the Braunstein that I had well, I had witnessed Macho Mandolph elbow drop her from his skiff during that Braunstein. I have been in a whole bunch of weird sessions.
Right? Like this stuff that's so stupid and yet so awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with a powerful sorceress? Well, clearly
I
you
was like,
use a wrestling move on her.
because I was like a level 3 fighter in that instance. Like Macho Mandolph hired me on because I hung my shingle up because I was like, hey, my fighter needs work, So he became a
Right on.
bouncer
Oh, you
at
were
his
the guy that
bar.
wanted to just work at a bar.
Yeah, yeah, like because I was having trouble like with 1-to-1 time initially because it was brand new to me because I'd been doing
Yeah.
conventional play all this time before, as we all have. And so it's like, okay, there's expenses. Well, okay,
Right
if
on.
I can't make it if I can't make it next week, what's my guy gonna do for money? He's gonna starve to death on the streets. Like, well,
Yeah,
that's no good.
exactly.
So it's like, well, shit, I'm a level 1 fighter. What can I do? Well, do you need a rent-a-cop or anything?
Yeah.
Security guard?
Bouncer at the club.
Right, and so he became a bouncer, which, Redgar, the most boring man in Trilopolis, ended up getting at least some kind of personality because I was like, Roadhouse, I can work with that.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome.
So
How
he
did you
turned
get
into
invited into Trilopolis, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
okay, so I had known Jeffro since Appendix N got published, so I was kind
Okay.
of like part of that whole pulp revolution scene that's still kind of going on.
Right on.
Because I mean, like, met a bunch of these people through it. Kursova, Not John Dacre, a number of people.
Yeah, I mean, how far back do you want to go? This kind of even there's some shared DNA with like the sad puppies and mad puppies and
Well,
stuff, right?
and also ethics and video games journalism, if we want to go that
Oh,
far. But
Gamergate. That's not topical right now.
no, not at all. That's who talks about that anymore.
All right, sorry. I don't want to get out too far off track.
Yeah, it's all connected. But so getting back to like okay, so yeah, I knew Jeffro through Appendix N. I read a bunch of the Appendix N stuff. Just like Jeffro, I was mad that I had not heard of most of these authors. Yeah, through the Castalia House blog, I was reading that at the time when Jeffro was in charge of that, and it's just exciting stuff. Like, and you read these things, you read these old stories, these old adventure stories, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
one, D&D starts like the DNA of D&D makes a lot more sense, right? Like you read
Oh yeah.
Three Hearts and Three Lions by Poul Anderson, and that is literally the complete Paladin's Handbook.
Not just that, but you will understand alignment just from
Yep.
reading that. It will make more sense than it's ever made.
Yep. But like every single power the Paladin has in, first edition D&D,
Yeah.
that's in Three Hearts and Three Lions. Everything. The summoned horse, the laying on of hands, everything is in there. The losing his powers because he got horny.
Yeah. The debilitating boner.
Yeah. Well, elf chicks are hot, and that's a problem,
Yeah. It's all they got. They don't have a soul, but
no.
Right on, man.
So yeah, back to yes, exactly. So getting back to okay, so Appendix N, that's how I met Jeffro, talking about stuff, talking about fiction and all that stuff. Eventually got back into like, hey, I really did want to play first edition, and this sounded really exciting. And I'm like, I'm confused. I don't really know what's going on, but we got it, talking to the people, and that's kind of how I got invited in eventually.
Okay.
And I,
Cool.
so I rolled up a bog standard fighter with mediocre stats,
Which are way more interesting in first edition than fifth, by the way. The fighter is amazing, like necessary.
Fighters are fantastic. I love them.
Yeah, I just want to call out Macho's comments here. He goes, Jeffro, where should he end up with Stormbringer? Everyone, Dubs are on, ha ha ha.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's exactly what it was. It's like, hey, let's troll B-dubs. that was the sentiment, and I'm sure B-dubs. Well, I mean, obviously, B-dubs will troll Jeffro. I mean, it's back and forth.
Yep.
There's competition between the tables.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. And so yeah, long story short, there was an assassin in the party who was played by Elfinder General.
Okay.
the monolith gets absolutely destroyed by psychics. Psionics just pop her head like a grape.
Wow.
Like we just alpha striked her.
I've never rolled up a psionic character.
Yeah. I think they were technically Macho Mandolph's guys.
Okay.
Because like he was just like, this monolith is bad news. We gotta nip it in the bud now. Like boom, we know where she is. We're getting this. So
and he's got a big enough population he can sift for those.
Well, I mean, Redgar is a member of is a decorated member of the Pegasus Flying Corps of Machador now.
Right on.
But so
Psycorp for the win.
Yes, exactly.
Doesn't matter how many arms you have, your head just pops like a grape, and then
I mean, horrible demon, very powerful, very very resistant to a lot of things, but psionics not so much.
Can't beat scanners.
Yeah. So, Elfinder's assassin, who was Manson. I'm assuming the audience can figure out the reference point for that.
Maryland.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
You just get a little helter skelter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he decides to act his alignment and act his class, and he sees an evil sword, and he's an evil character, and he just like grabs it.
Yoink.
And everybody's like, "Oh, damn it. What are you going to do?" Because this is Stormbringer, and everybody knows that Stormbringer is bad news, right? And it's like, he can't take out all of us, but nobody wants to be taken out by Stormbringer, because that's
one of the things.
Bad way to go.
Playing with these guys is like the glee with which they will instantly turn on the group. It is.
Well, he was playing his class. Yeah. And so basically he cut a deal with Macho Mandolph, I think, and whatever. It's like, okay, we got this portal. That was the plan. We're gonna send Stormbringer through the portal. You go with it. And he's like, yeah, all right. And that's how he ended up in Dubzeron.
Okay. So did he switch over and start playing with B-Dubs then?
I think he was just kind of there, sort of like as an NPC, kind of like.
Yeah, because I mean, now we're talking about.
I don't think he wasn't a part.
Right?
Yes, I mean, yeah, they're similar, but they're different, right? Mm-hmm. I think Ascend armor class goes up in X.
Yeah,
I believe, but there's enough similarities and there's enough ethos that is shared. And so fast forward a couple months later, the Burning Sands campaign kind of petered out because it was a bunch of patrons, BrOSR patrons, but it was like for a real life group. But Burning Sands did have a battle scenario that played out on Mr. Wargaming's channel, which is like the Walls of Ur or something like that. It was the city of Ur. Frogtown was not involved with that because I wasn't going to get involved in something like that. That's stupid. Yeah. Let the dry skins fight it out. I don't know. I'm unbothered and moisturized in my swamp.
Yeah, little did you know.
Yeah, well, so after that campaign goes on indefinite hiatus, B-Dubs is like, hey, I'm looking for patrons, and I message him and I'm like, yo, what are you looking for? And we kind of start talking about that, and I'm like, all right, how about I bring over some guys from Frogtown? And he's like, okay, great, I'll drop you in this swamp here.
Is this inspired by the Rowdy Roddy Piper movie?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I called my faction leader in Burning Sands was Commander Toady, who's named after the main villain of. Yeah, no, it's absolutely. Yeah, no.
I think the only time I saw even movie. Part of that, I was a kid, and it was like on USA Up All Night or something like that. And my parents came down like, "What are you doing? You should go to bed. This is trash."
Oh, it's art.
We thought it was hilarious.
The movie's art. I mean, yeah, it's Sandal Bergman from Conan the Barbarian, and you got Roddy Piper with a bomb around his junk, and he's fighting guys in frog costumes.
I just remember there was like a frog guy hanging off a cliff, and his little feet were trying to get purchased to climb back on, and we thought that was so stinking funny.
Yeah, it's a great B movie, fantastic, highly recommend it. And that was the inspiration for Frogtown. So I decided to send over a much more expendable, I wasn't sending Toady over. I was just sending like his dumb nephew over.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to do the Apu Apustaha memes and all, the friend memes and everything. And I ended up in the swamp. And I'm like, cool, all right, maybe turtle up here for a little bit and see what's what, kind of get the lay of the land. And then all of a sudden, like, oh no, the swamp's getting drained. And it's like, oh no, food is a problem now. So I had to, Frogtown had to go on the offensive there. And so I was doing raids and stuff. And B-Dubs was mostly taking care of that. I was giving orders and he was working it out.
Okay.
So
I think people are probably interested in that stuff too. Is like, we can talk about like the crazy stuff that happened, but like also how do you adjudicate that? What does it look like if someone wanted to do that in their own campaigns?
A lot of that was B-Dubs adjudicating that. And
okay.
I'm grateful for that because I'm not very familiar with Axe. I've looked at it. I like it, but it's also one of those I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. And it takes me,
so
I don't know if I'm weird, but it takes me a long time to learn a game system.
It can, yeah.
And so it's like, I don't want to learn a bunch of different ones at the same time. I'd rather just get one down before I move on.
Right. Which, so, and I went into that campaign with the understanding that I am, one, a guest, and two, I am a villain.
Yeah.
I am we are probably going to die. Like, we are going to die, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to make them earn it if I can. Like, I'm not just going to roll over, but, it's good and proper for a chaotic, evil Frogman faction to be wiped out by the forces of good. Like, yes,
but
obviously. But that doesn't mean I can't have fun.
That's right. And in a BrOSR campaign, the bad guys have the best chance that they'll have anywhere because the DM is actually supposed to be a neutral referee that's not secretly pulling for the good guys, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Although I'm sure it happens.
Well, I mean, I know B-Dubs is just is an uncaring god in his campaign. The dice fall where they fall, and
so
he's happy when they die.
Did you have to give him regular, like, one-to-one time instructions? Or was it more like he would come to you when he needed help with something and be like, okay, what does your guy do with this scenario?
I would give him, like, I think instructions kind of like on the week, like, this is what I want to do for this week. Or it's like, okay, we need to get food, we need to get supplies or whatever. We're going to raid along the coastline. We're going to, do whatever. So it was kind of giving instructions. And then if something happened that related to my faction, then he would come to me, obviously, and we talked about what my reaction to that would be. So
how much of a time commitment?
Not a whole lot on my end for this. So this was a lot more, I think, B-Dubs doing it. Obviously, I was thinking about stuff and, obviously posting on Twitter because, that's where the mind games happen.
Yeah.
And that's where the PR game happens.
So fascinating about the patron part of the game is that you can say, well, I'm going to be a player. And even though it's a one-to-one campaign thing, for the most parts, you really only care about while you're there in session. And like, well, at least, I mean, I'm still learning. So I'm sure there's probably much better players that are making the most of their downtime as well. But the idea is that, just if you don't have time to do, 4 hours a week or 6 hours or whenever, however much the session is, just be a patron. It won't be as much of a time commitment. And maybe the actual communication of what you're doing is less. But I find that when you're a patron, like, it consumes you in a way that being a player doesn't. Is like you're always worrying about, okay, do I have enough troops in the right area, and where are the enemies, and what are they going to try? And like you will overthink it way easier.
Oh, absolutely.
In my experience.
Oh yeah, it's very easy to do that.
A patron never stops playing, is what I'm trying to say.
In their own head, yeah. You're always trying to think about, like, okay, if this happens, what do I react to? If this happens, how do I react? If this because one thing that was in my head was like, okay, if I get attacked, how do I react? Right. So I'm trying to make moves and everything. I ended up getting, I guess it's a very powerful artifact within, like, the actual Turos Tem official Axe lore.
Oh, okay.
It was the stone, right? And
the Stone of Saqqara.
Is that what it was called?
I don't know.
Because It might have been.
There's a module called the Sinister Stone of Sakara. It lets you make monsters, I think.
Yeah, it let me make zombies and stuff, like undead. It let me make undead, and it let me make friends. So I called it the Friend Stone. So I had the Friend
Stone of Sakara was the Friend Stone.
Right, with a little Apu, cheering frog guy, like, "Yay!"
I love it.
It got stolen. It got stolen right out from under my nose.
Hashtag Friendstone.
Yeah. Rapunzel stole it. The player character Rapunzel, which I believe, yeah. So yeah, I had the Friendstone, and then I lost it, and I was mad. And so I think I upped my raids on the human lands, the dry skins, and I also tried to flood the market with Froge coins, which are
this is what I'm talking about, guys. This is that deep magic.
Like, okay, those chocolate coins with the foil wrapper and everything. It's like that, but instead of chocolate inside, it's just dried mud. And so I was just trying to like send those coins out everywhere to all like the demi-humans and the non-humans and everything, So I'm proud of this scheme, and I'm like, yes, all right, I'm gonna flood the market, devalue the currency, let's crash this economy. Let's go to the moon, guys.
Diamond hand Froge coin to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of days later, I'm hearing rumblings. I'm hearing rumblings on Twitter and hints and allegations and intimations of violence by various people in the Dubzeron campaign, and I'm like, oh, I need to get ready because the hammer's coming.
They are not pleased with what you've been doing.
Frienderal Reserve.
John Dacre. Frienderal Reserve. Oh,
so
man.
So yeah, that's what led to, so I had the frogs had learned about, like, because I'd put out feelers to B-dubs, like, I'm looking for allies, I need anybody, because Dracon's coming.
Yeah.
Dracon's gonna kill me.
Dracon, the Braunstein flattener.
Yes, it's Brigandine. I mean, he's elite level. Like, he's elite level. Great guy. But it's like, okay, no, I'm not. This is no. I got to be like, I'm funny. Like, I'm being silly up front with the Apu memes and everything. But like, no, I got no.
Yeah, he is.
Like, I got to prep.
So I'm in a Kriegspiel with him right now. He's on the other side, and it's terrifying to know he's over there plotting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so so yeah, I find out about Manson. I reach out to him. Frogtown's evil. He's evil. He's looking to do something in the campaign, and so I recruited him, which was great because Manson and Stormbringer he killed a lot of things on that beach that day before we're going down, and then I also recruited a genie.
Okay,
that was on the island that I was based on. And that was
so
not
Manson
John Dacre.
shows up. You were there as your bouncer when Manson was kicked out of Trellopolis,
right? And as
there is your frog when he shows up in Dubzeron, and you're like, I need help, and he's like, help is on the way.
Kind of, yeah. But again, with kayfabe, right? With the kayfabe of the campaigns and everything, Frogtown didn't know about that, even though I knew about him. So I had to put out feelers, and I was looking for anybody, anything, and like, and I was just like, hey, maybe I hear about this Manson guy. Let me know if I can, if I hear anything about him. If I do, I want to contact him and stuff like that. Yes, Dorinal, Operation Muscle Thunder. Briefly, because too much happened in that to really go into.
So is this prior to Muscle Thunder, or is this while it's all
this was like prior to, because when Muscle Thunder happened, it was
on.
It was shock and awe. So I also had a genie, and the genie I had, like, so the genie also was a big help. That was not John Dacre. So yeah, so eventually, yeah, Operation Muscle Thunder comes down. We give it our best. We're overwhelmed ultimately. The good guys planned extremely well, and I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see if I can take anybody out, on the way down.
Yeah.
In a way, I did, because they decided to throw Stormbringer into the sun, which then caused the skies to turn red, and it kind of killed the sun, sort of, for a little while, because
Yes.
that's where Mr. Wargaming's campaign of episodes occurred, because of Operation Muscle Thunder.
So like Muscle Thunder happens. Who came at you guys? It was you and Manson and a
So,
genie and your frogs, and who was coming
yep,
at you?
it was Prefect Dracon and a bunch of the barbarian people, a bunch of PCs, a
Is this
bunch of
before
player
or after
characters.
they had killed Ferrigno, the Green
Oh, this is
Dragon?
well after. This is well
Okay,
after.
all right.
This is well after Ferrigno. Yeah,
So
I
you were
guess.
outnumbered, and you had the good guys
Well,
on you.
I don't think I was outnumbered. I had a lot of frogmen, but they were kind of trash troops. And again, there was a lot of player characters. I really only had like one player character, and that was Manson.
Got it. Okay.
Outside of like my boss characters and stuff like that. But that was primarily B Dubs, I think, was rolling that stuff. So like we were primarily NPC kind of stuff.
Okay.
Which is good, because it was in like during work, and I'm getting messages and like, this is how I react. This is the plan. And I had multiple step plans. I had like,
Yeah.
I was trying to like, force multiply my own stuff, make it look like I had more than I actually had, because I was like having illusions of dragons flying around and trying to attack people and stuff with phantasmal force and that kind of stuff. It didn't work, but
Oh,
hey, it was worth a
Phantasmal Force
try.
is awesome.
Phantasmal.
So knowing B Dubs, I've had him on the show a couple times now.
Mhm.
Did you ever give him too much? Did you ever like give him a bunch of instructions and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not reading all that."
I think a little bit here and there, but by and large, a lot of the instructions came while I was busy with other stuff as well.
Yeah,
So it's like, well, okay. I think I
always
think
on.
I think I was giving him too much in the beginning when I joined in. And he's like, you don't need to give me all that stuff, right? Like, what are your general plans? What do you want to do? What's your general like? You
Yeah,
don't need to give me like too many specifics unless something actually comes up. But if like you want general stuff, here we go.
got it.
So that was, I think, a good level of interact. Like, again, every campaign is different, every table is different, every DM has a different style. So yeah, the sword gets thrown into space, into the sun.
There's a battle to protect the sun.
There's
It
a battle
doesn't
to.
go well for the good guys.
Yep.
The sun gets pierced by a soul-drinking demigod sword,
Yep. But the
and
sun
then
is
it's
also a deity, so it gets better
yeah.
eventually.
So yeah, it will heal Aminar, but Aminar, the forces of good across all of the linked campaigns in the multiverse event, the forces of good take a whooping, and
Hmm.
evil gets the leg up, right?
Right. So kind of independently of that, because the Operation Muscle Thunder was like something like July, something like that. It was like,
Okay.
yeah, it was like July,
And
June,
so
July.
Muscle
It
Thunder
was in the
was
summer.
just about destroying your frogs,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's it.
Yeah, and getting rid of Stormbringer,
Yeah,
because
getting the evil
because
out
me
of the campaign.
because I hope, I really hope, the fact that I had a guy wielding Stormbringer on that beach that day came as a really big surprise to them.
Yeah, they come over the horizon, and
I
there's
like, oh,
Manson.
we're gonna squash these frogs, and all of a sudden Stormbringer is here.
Yep, in the hands of a homicidal assassin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
That had to be a good moment.
he killed a lot of things. Like, I was seeing the reports. Yeah, yeah. Then the blood rains. Yeah, yeah. So after this, I'm out of B Dub's campaign again, because I was just as a patron, kind of just a guest villain of
And
whatever.
your guys got wiped out.
Oh
Your
yeah,
frogs were all frog
I
legs.
think some of them have been enslaved to fighting gladiatorial arenas. I think some of them may be working for Vince, McMaximus.
I love the Broasar. This is so hilarious.
Oh
So
yeah, it's the anecdotes. Like, this is these. It's not the story that you plan out, right?
yeah, the
It's
story is what you
it's
tell each other afterwards.
it's the anecdotal emergent storytelling of like,
You need
this
Frog
happened,
Moses to go
then
lead
this
the
happened.
frog people out.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right.
And
So
then
what? But BrOVENLOFT was on your mind at that point, because I remember hearing something that if the bad guys win, the sword hits the sun, and then it's bad news for everybody. But I thought if the good guys win, the plan was to shunt the sword once again into a pocket dimension called BrOVENLOFT.
It may have been, but I really
was that
remember
like a retroactive thing, or was that?
I think initially there was like a little bit of time, like, obviously space distances are large, so chucking the sun at the chucking the sword at the sun is going to take a while, and I
Dornell says Storebringer beget Blood Rains beget Space Game beget Who Caresville Trilopulus has never recovered.
I mean, has Trolopulus ever recovered from the start? I mean, I remember Godzilla burned that city to the ground.
Yeah, the city itself. I've been playing for almost a year now, and I have never seen the city of Trilopulus.
It's a fixer upper. there was a giant Godzilla. Yeah.
It's a fixer upper. I think it got invaded and diseased, and
yeah, the disease, the weebs. A lot of bad things happened to that city, but it's an evil city, so it deserved it. Really. Yeah, he was doing the battle during BrOVENLOFT. Yes, he was.
Okay.
So I think that was like how it was being adjudicated.
So you guys turned it over to him and then just kind of waited to see what happened.
Well, that was him and B-Dubs working that out. At this point, okay. I had no say so whatsoever in Stormbringer.
So when did you first hear the word BrOVENLOFT?
Okay, so something in the Twitter sphere came up, and Ravenloft was being discussed.
Yeah.
Well, I think by the D&D normies.
I think they just reissued like coffin
I think
box.
It was. I think it may have. I think it may have been that. It was like Curse of Strahd was on the mind. Like the original Ravenloft adventure was on people's minds. It might have been an anniversary, something like that. And so we're kind of talking in.
And October's coming up.
And October's coming up, and this was like August, and we're just kind of spitballing how cool it would be. 36 minutes in, and now we're on BrOVENLOFT. Well,
heis your mouth, Robert. Heis your mouth.
Robert, if you want, I could talk about swing dancing for half an hour. How about that?
I feel like we get enough of that.
Swing dancing's cool. I want to get back into it. That's all I got to say about it, really. Anyway,
I remember it like in the 90s as like a retro fad.
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Cherry Poppin' Daddies, all that stuff. It was cool.
Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Yep.
Yeah.
All good stuff.
Right on, man.
So yeah, we're talking about Ravenloft, and we're talking about like the various domains of dread from 2e Ravenloft. Like they're all like, okay, everyone's got a boss monster that lives inside of each domain, and
they're all sealed off,
right? And they're sealed off, and it's like this is this really cool thing. You have all these pre-built, baked-in factions into the setting, but they're sealed off from each other, right? And you think about stuff like the old Universal stuff, like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, like the old Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, that kind of stuff, where it's just like let's have Frankenstein and Dracula and a hunchback
Godzilla
and a mad
King
scientist.
Kong.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Hammer Horror did stuff like that. Universal obviously is kind of like a big touchdown on that, but it's
Freddy versus Jason.
Freddy, it's there. It's baked into horror. Yeah, especially as franchises get long in the teeth. So, it's fun, it's cheesy, it's not as good as maybe the original stories, but who cares? You get to see Frankenstein and the Wolfman trying to strangle each other on screen. It's great.
If somebody hands you a Wolfman as an NPC patron, you immediately know what the character is about and what to do with it.
Yeah.
You don't have to come up with this 8-page backstory. You're like, oh, I'm the Wolfman. I got this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so we're talking about that, and we're like, we could BrOSR this up easily.
We're talking about that. Who's talking in the back channel, or is this all online?
This was back channel stuff, like just kind of like private chat stuff. We're just kind of spitballing, talking about mechanics and rules and stuff. And I remember, I think it was me, Kursova, and Brain Leakage primarily. I think Mr. Wargaming was involved, a couple others, I think, but primarily it was me, Brain Leakage, and Kursova really kind of like spitballing ideas about this, because yeah, Ravenloft has so much cool potential with like the whole spooky.
Yeah.
Ooh,
October,
it's
Halloween.
right. It's thematically brilliant, right? Like, oh, this it's always foggy and it always looks like a Hammer horror movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Arneson was a big
Oozing
Hammer horror.
with ambiance.
Right, ambiance and all that stuff, and it was just a shame that you couldn't have and this was a problem that happened, throughout the 80s, where it's kind of like the settings had a stasis built into them because
Mm-hmm.
business model, you want to sell books, you want to sell product, you want the product to be recognizable, the product has to become a brand now. So it's like Strad Zarovich he's always brooding in his castle about his lost love because he
Yeah.
has to be. Because otherwise, if you do anything different to that, it's like Batman. It's like Batman can't retire. You
Yeah.
know,
It's
Batman
always
always has.
foggy and BrOVENLOFT. That's
It
great.
is. It actually is. And this morning was foggy, so that's appropriate. Um, so as we're just thinking about that, it's like, how do we do this, right? Well, we wouldn't just like, okay, let's take the core concept of Ravenloft, where you got these domains of
Yeah.
dread. Um, so they're populated by monster archetypes or whatever archetypes, like patron archetypes. Um, and we do the BrOSR method of giving control of each monster as a patron to their faction and everything. And
So
so
wait a second. You're still saying we at this point? Like, is it the three of you making these choices, or like, is there a time when you get pointed out to be the DM for this?
I volunteered.
Okay.
I was just like, yeah, screw it, I'll do it.
Were
This sounds
you
fun.
and you were looking like, okay, so for someone who's trying to run, I mean, I don't know
Mhm.
if you had any idea how big it was going to be.
No,
Probably you did.
no,
Okay.
no.
All right. So you're like,
Because
hey,
this,
this would be fun. We're
mhm,
spitballing here, coming up with ideas.
right. And as
Um,
soon as because there was positive energy. Again, it wasn't just us three. It was others. It was, I think, Elfinder was in there talking about it, because Elfinder's another horror movie guy. He loves that stuff. He
okay.
loves that old school horror stuff. And yeah, I volunteered. Yeah, big. Yeah, no, you're who you telling? Big mistake. Um, and so yeah, there was an instant energy and an
Yeah.
instant excitement about it. Like, just people's imagination started thinking like, oh, what could we do with this? What could we like? What kind of
It was an
factions could we
idea
make
whose
up?
time had come.
It really was. It really was. And it ended up being um so it's just sort of like everybody was like this the consensus was this needed to happen.
Hmm.
Like, that was the thing. The consensus
Right
was
on.
this needed to happen. And Kursova's busy with the publishing stuff. Great magazine. Buy Kursova magazine.
Right
Support his
on.
Kickstarters. It's good stuff.
Yeah, just got so my mail call includes I got Tony Beth's Ancient Wargaming, which isn't relevant right now, but
Mhm.
also The Eye of Saunu
Oh,
by
by Sky Hernstrom.
Skylar Hernstom, and
Yes.
it's got a couple extra stories that weren't, but most of the stories in this first showed up in Kursova, and it
Hmm.
is blowing me away. I'm only on the third
Oh,
story, and it is good stuff.
Sky Hernstrom is, without a question, the best writer that came out of Pulp Revolution so far.
Okay,
Without a question. Objectively. He's the closest to Robert E. Howard. He's the closest to the old Pulp Masters.
it does have that feel. It's got that magic. But anyway, I
And
didn't want to get you off track.
yeah, no,
All that just
I
support
got off track
Kursova.
by shilling Kursova. Shill
Yeah.
Kursova. Yes. Kursova good, buy Kursova. Um and so yeah, like, people were busy, brain leakage was busy. So I'm just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
This is something that needs to happen. I'll take the burden. I will take the ring to Mordor.
Right on.
And
So,
and so
what were your
I kind
first
of like posted
questions
up. Yeah, okay,
as a
yeah.
DM? Like, what were the first things you were trying to solve? Because usually you'd think, okay, if I'm starting a campaign or starting a thing, I need a map. I need to know what rule set I'm using. I need to know who the characters are and stuff. What were the questions you were asking at that point?
Okay, so the questions I was like, yeah, like, so what I was asking myself basically.
Yeah.
Okay, it was just like, all right, I've been in Trilopolis. I'm more familiar with 1E's rules now than I was before. We'll use 1E.
Right on.
We can
Okay.
we can roll in second edition stuff, because a lot of second. I mean, obviously the Ravenloft setting is second edition.
Yeah. So
So
it opens the door to
it
their
opens up
stuff.
the door to monsters and treasure from second edition. Like I said, Gangster Rapper was a 2e Greater Mummy. Um,
Okay.
and I know I get flack for it, but I am fond of second edition. It was the edition when I was a kid that I wanted to play, and I never really got a chance because I was out in the sticks a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
none of the friends that I had and hung out with really were into D&D. So it's like it was always something I wanted to do, and I'd played like the gold box games on Commodore 64
Okay.
in the 90s, like well after I think the Commodore had died. But yeah, so it's like it was always something that I thought was cool. I thought the art was cool. I had the big hardcover second edition Monsters Compendium, which is I think still one of the best bestiaries published.
Okay.
Uh, but so yeah, I'm looking like okay, 1E with some 2E elements. That was the rule set.
All right.
So that was the very first thing. It's like okay, we got to go with first edition rules because it's the most baked in. And I had previously tried to run like that year. In the spring and early summer, I tried to run a 2e BrOSR style campaign. It was very experimental. I only had like two
Mm-hmm.
players with it. It didn't last very long. And it was annoying because second edition's flaws really became apparent because
Are there that many? Like, it seems like
well,
5e would be farther away from BrOSR. Like, it seems like 2e would be very close.
in many ways, yes. And then when you're trying to look up how much rations cost, and it's like it was three of us looking in the DM's guide looking for where the rations cost are in the equipment list, and there was nothing.
Just nothing.
And
Okay.
I was just like flipping through pages, looking at the index, and I was like, where's the rations? Like I need like a week's worth of rations. And so eventually, just to keep the game moving, I was just like, all right, we'll just default to the 1E settings.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just default to the 1E prices for the rations because I can't find them
Yeah.
in the second edition DM guide. I'm like, ugh, and it's like that was a big souring moment on 2E where it's just like, yes, it is compatible. You can make it work, absolutely, because the rules are very similar.
But
The
something
rules are
so basic, something you would encounter right off the bat, isn't there?
something that you need to think about, like encumbrance and stuff like that for 1E play was quietly just omitted,
Yeah.
whether by they just didn't think it was necessary at that point, in 87 or whenever when the rules were published. But it was a frustrating thing, and it's just like, okay, I like a lot of the second edition stuff. The settings are neat. I mean,
Yeah.
all the published stuff and everything is ultimately kind of what killed TSR, which is a pity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was like, okay, I don't want to use second edition rules because I've got enough people that I'm going to recruit that are familiar with first edition. Second edition is just going to piss them off more than me. Because like when Jeffro read the second edition DM guide, he very clearly hated it because it is full of a lot of advice that is incompatible with BrOSR style play,
Yeah.
and that it's and a lot of it is like like it's got a wishy-washy tone. It's very much like, well, you could do it the old way, and like a lot of the old rules from first edition are still in second edition, but they're kind of couched as, or you could do it this way,
Yeah.
which
Stuff that maybe Gygax would have written in all caps, they would have been like, "Do as thou wilt."
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, and you can use gold as XP if you want to. It's like, yeah, I do actually. it's it's
Yeah.
great. It adds a huge dynamic, and encumbrance adds a huge dynamic to gold because yeah, you get XP based on how much money you can haul back to safety. And
Yeah.
at that
Well,
point you're
John
saying like
McGowan.
I need a wagon, I need barrels, I need guys to carry that stuff for me, I need teamsters, I need so you're thinking about that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, if you spend the money to get those things, you have a greater chance of getting a bigger haul and getting more XP.
Yeah, John McGowan, who wrote the Living campaign, recently
Hmm.
just came out. Um, he made the case that um, building a stronghold is one of the second or third order effects of the encumbrance rule.
Hmm.
That, like, because you have encumbrance, because you can only hold so much wealth, even if you find Smaug's treasure, you're only going to
Hmm.
get what's in your pockets. That, like, that one rule that everyone thinks is too much bookkeeping, not very fun, has real world implications throughout the rest of the game, and how many of those load bearing rules did we just dismiss and say you don't really need to do this, fudge the dice, rule zero it away if it's too much trouble, and like we didn't realize that our game was changing.
Yeah, it's Chesterton's fence.
Yeah,
You take it away, you don't realize, you don't realize what this thing does. So you take it away, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that had a lot of knock-on effects on a lot of really interesting gameplay stuff. Yeah, like, even in second edition, like fighters get strongholds at level 9 like they do in first edition. However, it's kind of like
yeah.
if you're playing conventionally, if you're playing like by more modern style, like third edition and onward rules, you're like, why would I need a stronghold?
I don't know why my camera keeps
You're back in
unfocusing.
focus.
Yeah, I think it's probably because I should shut up and let you talk more.
Okay. I mean, I was sandbagging it.
ignore me.
I wasn't going to bring attention to it.
B-dubs would have busted my chops a long time ago.
I was just going to sandbag it,
All right, so rules, you chose 1E with some supplemental stuff from 2E.
Primarily like monsters and if it was going to come up. But yeah, it was so I like the idea of kits from second edition, but they're also a bit too much like prestige classes and too much like third edition. So it's like, no, we're just going to leave it as is. Okay. First edition mechanics with monsters and like treasures and maybe spells or something like that from second edition. But I don't remember any spells taking a major effect. I mean, from second edition, spells had a major effect, just not from 2E.
Okay.
And so after that, it was I'm gonna roll up the map, right? So that was.
And how did you build the map?
So it was the DMG. One of the appendixes. I forget which
Appendix
one it
A?
was.
The overland travel one. Or, I'm sorry, no. Appendix A is dungeons. Appendix
A was dungeons.
C.
I think it was C. Yes.
Yeah. Appendix C is the overland travel.
So basically, I ended up buying a notepad kind of thing with a hex pattern on it. And so, cool. I just sat down one evening and I just started rolling, like, terrain and everything. It's like, so, okay, how big are the hexes? We decided on, I decided on, with feedback based from other people, it was like 24-mile hexes. So
see, that's a question that always stymies me when I'm trying to start. It's like, how do you know how big to make a hex?
Because I think Trilopulos's was somewhere like 30-mile hexes, and those took a while to traverse.
Yeah.
So it seemed like 24 is something like, yeah, you could clear a hex in a day.
I think Appendix
if you're hustling it.
Yeah, I think Appendix C says 1 mile hexes, which is
that's small. Yeah.
Way too
relatively, yeah.
Yeah, it's way too zoomed in for what you were trying to build.
Right. I mean, if you really want to go granular, you could probably build bigger hexes and then smaller hexes within them and just, do the whole Russian doll thing. Was there much of any conversion done to the monsters or treasure?
So from the 2E treasure and monsters, bringing them into 1E, did you have to convert anything, or did you just lift and drop?
I think the monster stats were pretty much just lifted and dropped. I believe so. With the treasure, again, I don't think the treasure particularly came into effect unless some of the patrons had 2E treasure, but I don't really think so. I think they mostly were using the 1E DMG as well, primarily. And also Oriental Adventures and Unearthed Arcana, I believe. 2E Gnome Vampire. Yeah, Macho played the Gnome Vampire from Ravenloft. Yep.
Gnome Vampire. All right, so the first question you asked yourself is what rules? The second question
question was map. So I started rolling up the map. And so once I rolled up the map, so it's like you go through, just following what Gygax wrote down in there. Just you follow the steps. So you're rolling for terrain types. You're rolling for.
I think Dornell's saying it's Appendix B is what we're talking
Appendix
about.
B. I don't have it handy at the moment, so I trust you, Dornell. Appendix B is the hex map. Appendix C is monster encounter. Yes. Okay. There you go.
I got my POD version. We'll get to the bottom of this one right here.
Well, Dornell says he's got it open right now while he's killing Macho Mandolf's elf.
Okay. Yeah, he's correct. Appendix C is random monster encounters.
Okay. Yeah. So, yes. So that's sort of what I just followed Appendix C all the way down. You roll for settlements, you roll for ruins and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so once that all was done, I ended up cleaning it up, making it pretty and nice, and doing kind of a computer version of it through some free software online that was pretty handy and easy to use. And
Hex
then I
Friend,
ended.
perhaps.
Was it Hex Friend? It may have been.
Okay.
Um, and so that's the map I posted on Twitter, and
so your map had terrain and it
yep.
had settlements.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
ruins,
like unnamed settlements. Yeah, there were
all the
ruins,
stuff
unnamed
that came up
settlements.
through rolling it up randomly.
Yes, but there wasn't
then,
anything populating it yet, and that is where the land grab happened.
Okay.
So as I'm like kind of as I was putting out feelers to BrOSR players, because I was kind of like specifically just going, we're looking for BrOSR veterans to run
Yeah.
patrons, because this is going to be weird. This is going to be wild. I want, it would be better if it was people that were already familiar with the concepts and everything.
Which I think probably was something that Ryan Heffelfinger might have benefited from when he tried to do Bro Oriental Adventures. I think he got a lot of us noobs that really didn't know what we were doing. And I mean, we'll get to it later talking about the cost on the DM, but he had even more of trying to bring us along and coach us. Whereas you were like, I just want some meat eaters to get in here and do the thing.
And I think that helped. I mean, I would also recommend, if you're going to run a Braunstein, like start small, but I think I ended up with something like 20 patrons anyway. Maybe 22, somewhere around that.
Did
So
you
it
say
wasn't
no to
small.
anyone?
Not especially, because I either knew them from Trilopulus or,
Okay.
like, because B-Dubs ran a faction.
Yeah.
Mr. Wargaming ran a faction. Elfinder sort of had a faction. And then a lot of it was also other players from other campaigns. Yeah, Robert Stevens. He was the Irish Candyman, which Dublin has gone through a lot of stuff and changes over the time. Tsar Bombadil, yeah. So a lot of these guys were either, if they were noobs, they were vouched for by bros that I knew.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the thing. Like, they may have been like less experienced members of other campaigns looking for it, but the land grab was where the excitement took off.
Have you heard my rap video?
Yes.
Like your lyrics just right there where you were like, I'm just thinking, all my friends are BrOSR, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Okay, anyway, sorry. That was an ADD thought, and I apologize. Back to the show.
Yeah, so now it turned into kind of like a race to get like a position that you thought was like, it was like Risk, right? It's like when you're picking territories in a board game of Risk.
So you've only got one piece each time to put down. Like, how do
No.
you keep
It's
someone
like,
from saying, "I'll have all these hexes"?
oh, you got one hex.
Okay,
It
so
was, you got
22
one hex.
people, and you're like, pick a hex. Did you have to do like a lottery or
No.
order
It
for
was
who picked
it
what
was
when?
literally a land grab. First come, first serve. And as it
Nice.
got claimed, I updated the map with like photos and everything. Because, like, okay, give me your avatar, give me your faction. It's got to be horror themed. It's got to be. Oh yes, Fluid ran the Eternal Expeditionary Company. Devilish Mercs open. Yes, and well, that led to some interesting things with World War Wish and the Infernal Forces, because some of them got stuck.
All right. So
Yeah.
are there any other like crunchy rules things that we need to talk about for someone that might be like, how do you set up and run one of these?
So yeah, primarily it was just trying to refamiliarize myself with the rules.
Yeah.
Kind of like in between the public facing stuff. It was getting players that I trusted that would know the rules, or we could figure out where the right rules were for stuff that came up. And and then it was just kind of like winding them up and pointing them at each other. And so it's like,
So you didn't have any NPCs in mind at all. You were just like, here's the land, here's the theme, go nuts.
Basically, yeah. It was like, come up with your horror themed faction, right? And again, like the image I posted was like the movie poster for Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, where it's like they're just brawling, right?
Yeah. Was it also a character grab, or did people know, okay, I'm the mummy, I'm gonna go for a desert?
It was yeah, there was a little actually yeah, there was a little bit of there was a bit of a character grab, I think, here and there. Some people were like, "Oh, if the vampire is already taken, I'll take the mad scientist, for example."
Okay.
Or something like that. And Brain Leakage ended up with the vampire, and well, history was made with that.
The first BrOSR
The f-
Muppet comes into being.
yes,
And
Count
from what I
Strahd von
hear,
Count.
I know that Muppet thing really rubbed Black Lodge Games the wrong way. But from what I hear, he would have done them proud with the pathos and the gravitas that he brought to the role, right? Like
Yeah,
he
well,
was a silly Muppet, but he had like a broken heart.
yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? The Muppet, like, yeah, it's the Count from Sesame Street is your visual touchstone,
Yeah,
and it also gives him the counting thing and like the quirks and everything. But
it's
that
an
was just the
OCD
starting point.
vampire.
Yeah, yeah, like which is actually technically part of vampire lore.
Ah,
Um, it is like if there's weird lore about vampires where like if they see like salt spilled or something, like they
or
got to
rice or
count
something.
every rice or something like that. They got to count every single one before they can keep going on
So you
wherever they're
throw it
going.
behind you when you're trying to escape them.
Yeah, something,
Love it.
it's weird lore like that, like various folklore stuff. So yeah, I mean he uses, because again, one of the big things for BrOSR patrons um is the shit posting game,
Yes.
right?
Like that's the meta
Because
game.
that is the meta, right? It's like whichever patrons have like the more engaging and amusing, Twitter posting,
Yeah.
they're the one, like squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so like honestly, I think one of the pioneers of that was Kursova with the United Caveman Federation. Because he was like Kursova was just posting grug memes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did actually, yeah. Yeah, I did say someone should do a Lopan character, and that's how Zar Bombadil became Bro Pan.
Right on.
Yep. Every
Um,
faction get the same basic stats. I think it was like it was like a level equivalent, basically.
did you purposefully want to make them evil? Or not evil, equal, or did you want it to
It
be
was
somewhat unbalanced?
oh, I didn't care about balance. I didn't care about balance one way whatsoever. Because I
So
was
you
just gonna.
probably had some faction people saying, "Well, what do I do? Like, I've picked a monster.
Mhm,
How many troops do I get? How much money do I have? You know, like those kind of
right.
questions."
A
Did
lot
those
of that
come to
is in the
you?
monster. A lot of that's in the monster manual. A
Okay.
lot of that's in the monster manual entries, both first edition and second edition. So they'll have stuff like that.
Yeah, it'll
Um,
say like you have to roll up how many you get for a
right,
group of goblins or
right.
whatever
Yeah,
overland.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And like the lairs and stuff like that. Like, okay, what kind of treasures do you have in your lair? You roll on that stuff and determine the kind of treasures you got, and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Nice.
So again, it's in the monster manual. Like it's a lot of it is there. Um, Now some of the characters I know, the Pope was basically a high level cleric. I think he was 16th level. Because like these are high level monsters. Like
Yeah.
these were high level, like vampire lords, mummy lords, like
Yeah.
liches, and stuff like that. So the Pope was technically a player character class, a cleric, and he was just leveled up, and so he followed along like what kind of domain would a 16th level cleric have, that
Got
sort
it.
of thing. So again, that's going
Man,
from the
there's so
player's
much
handbook.
there. There's so many bones to just hang stuff off of, just right in the
There
rule book.
really is, like,
Yeah.
it's weird because you read first edition and it's like it's like it keeps adding new rules that you didn't realize were there, that end up being relevant to what you're looking for once you actually find it. I just
Yeah,
wish it was
like
better laid out.
who would have ever thought in the '70s, well, this is what we're gonna put together, and it's like,
Right.
well, they
Well,
must have because here it is.
yeah, clearly it's here. It's like, oh,
That's so
hey,
amazing.
this is what grappling does. Cool.
I don't understand
So
how there's people that can be resistant to this, because it's like when you see how much is just lying there waiting to be
yeah,
reused and anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to go
it's
on my go ahead.
I mean
My camera will go out of focus on me again.
it's one of those things where it's like I can't go back to conventional play after this
Right,
kind of stuff. It's too
right.
exciting. It's too interesting. It's too unpredictable. It's too
It may not
chaotic.
be fair for us to say there's one true way for everyone, But for those of us that have tasted it, this is more engaging. This is more compelling than that other way. And so we
Right.
feel like it's better. And if there were one best of the options, this is what we would pick.
Right. I mean, I'll let the heel posting go to like Jeffro and
Yeah.
the people like that, where it's like, yes, you get to do like the whole sinners in the hands of an angry Jeffro speech.
Yeah.
Where it's like, but I mean, like, from my experience, it's like I'm not going to engage with like too many of the haters,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of them online who are engaging in bad faith. Like, they don't want a conversation, they want owns, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like it's not worth engaging with that,
They're
because you're
trying to
wasting
win
your
on
time.
Twitter. That's the game they're
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, you're looking for gotchas and stuff, and it's like, really, the advice I have is try it. Right? You don't have to do a BrOVENLOFT Braunstein. Like, that's
Yeah.
no, just roll up one hex, put some ruins in there, put some dungeons in there, get a group together, just have a party. That's honestly kind of how Trilopulus started. It was just boom, we got a hex and a couple maybe hexes around it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
don't
so
take our
just
word for it. Like you're saying, do
like
it for
like
yourself and see if we're full of
try
crap.
it,
Yeah.
because if you don't try, like, I had trouble wrapping my head around it the first couple of sessions,
Yeah.
right? Because it's alien, it's weird, it's unfamiliar, it's weird, right? Seeing it for the first time, especially if you've been playing the other way for decades,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's playing the other way for decades. Everybody, you know,
Yeah.
it was the common knowledge, right? Um, and you're not really going to understand how BrOSR play happens unless you actually try it,
The
because
magic is
then
in the second and third order effects that you cannot imagine if you haven't tried it.
very much so, very
Yeah.
much so. Like, and quite honestly, I have played with people who tried it and didn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
And fair enough.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That is perfectly fine. You tried it. Hey, I don't like beats, right? I tried them. I don't like them. That's fair. you know, but
That's
I
right.
tried them, you know?
Um, though I have a saying, I don't know where I picked it up. It's probably somewhere pink and fluffy or woo woo, but I think it applies in this case is when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Meaning you're not going to be able to learn from anybody until you have the mindset. I mean, you probably got teachers all along that
hmm
could have shown you a better way, but they're not going to be the teacher for you until you're ready. And yeah, it's not worth getting them upset, making them feel bad, making them feel like 40 years of their life has been wasted. For me, coming in fresh, I was humble and teachable, and I was like, if there's a better way, I want to try it.
hmm
And that's kind of, and I have not been abused. Well, B Dubs abuses me when he comes on my show, but other
Well,
than
that's
that, I've found a very easy way in to this group.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the we have, like, the BrOSR in general has dealt with a lot of bad actors over the last couple of years, like
Yeah,
looking for those gotchas, looking for clout, looking to shut us down, and by and large, again, like, the BrOSR is not it, it's a hobbyist movement,
yeah, it's a
right?
niche of a
It, it re-
niche,
it's a niche of a niche. It's a hobbyist movement. We're not really we're not we're not trying to sell PDFs of adventure paths and stuff like that, right? Like,
right?
that's other people. Like, again, that's fine, right? But we're a hobbyist. We're like a DIY hobbyist thing. We are, again, you can have a complete campaign with 3 books that were published 40 plus years ago.
That's right.
I mean, and
And
you
to
can
the
find those.
unscrupulous
You
are
c-
available for free
you,
online.
you could find them. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, you better to have physical copies, which you can also find, although those are starting to get expensive. Uh,
yeah. Well, so I've got most of my stuff is this print on demand
oh
stuff
yeah,
from
the
Mark.
reprints. Yeah, the reprints. Yeah,
Um, I did just get an original Monster Manual
oh,
2.
very nice. I
So
think I
that
have
was a
that
little
one.
more pricey, but worth it. And then, but like even on softback, they even have Fiend Folio hard copy on
Nice.
drive through. So
Nice, nice.
you can get
Yeah, I mean, you can print it up legit too. Yeah,
stuff that you can play for the rest of your life.
yeah. Now, again, if you want other stuff, great, sure, fine, go for it. It's your table. But
Hmm.
really, you only need those core books. You don't even need Monster Manual 2. You don't need the Fiend Folio. They're
Yeah.
nice. They're great. You don't need deities and demigods, but it adds a whole lot
Yeah.
of good stuff. Obviously, if you're doing an Oriental Adventures campaign, like Japan, China, that weeb stuff, then yeah, obviously Oriental Adventures is
Mm-hmm.
kind of necessary. But it's neat stuff. But you don't need it like to just get a game up and running off the ground. Just all you need is like Appendix B to roll up a hex, and then Appendix A to roll up a dungeon, and off you go. You're at the races.
Right on.
But getting back to BrOVENLOFT, so yes, rules. First edition, there was a little bit of second edition thrown in. The map generated that,
And then
and
for
then
NPCs, you just let the players create that for you.
I had them create the NPCs. Like they created their own lieutenants, they created their own secondary henchmen or whatever like that.
Cool.
And so during so September before October, that was where they were basically setting up their domains, trash talking constantly, trying to secure alliances and everything like that, and and working to recruit players, which was one of the really interesting, fun things about BrOVENLOFT. Was this was actually like the big crossover between campaigns.
Yeah.
Because we had, you had Jeffro's character Zanzel from Trilopulus
Yeah.
operating in BrOVENLOFT alongside Vince McMaximus from Dubzaron. Like they just, because again, like the whole thing with with BrOVENLOFT was, you can come in, like you go into the mists, you enter the fog, and here you are. You can come into BrOVENLOFT during October. You can't leave.
Yeah.
Outside of like wishes and stuff, which became a factor.
All right. So
which is one of the lessons that was learned.
So the stage is set. I mean,
Yep.
I often feel like there's three pillars of the BrOSR that they talked about a lot, which is the one-to-one time, the patrons, and the Braunstein. The one that you're helping us discover and rediscover here is the online hype. The
the hype is insane.
The grug memes, the stuff that you put out there that makes people laugh and get excited about it is part of the quintessential, like what makes this fun and funny and hilarious, and gives you the kind of stories that you can tell your friends that they just won't have from conventional play. So hopefully we touched the base. Authoritative News Network and Archer's Friend. Hopefully you guys got the rules itch scratched. Let's go back into like what actually happened and the stories.
Okay. Because I mean, like for the individual domains and everything, a lot of that was up to the players to determine. So a lot of them rolled up their own hexes and what they looked like within them. Some of them had, like Elf King had a crazy labyrinth that he put inside surrounding his castle with some really crazy status effects that would affect how long you would spend in the labyrinth depending on your alignment.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you're a lawful good, you're going to be in there a while.
Well, I mean, that's a very elfy thing to do, right?
Oh, it's extremely elfy because it's a huge dick move. Yeah.
Yeah, come into the party, we'll wine you and dine you, and you come out 100 years later, and everyone you know is dead.
Well, it wasn't that far, but because it was adjusted for like 1-to-1 time. But it's like, oh, your guys are stuck in a labyrinth for 5 days. A lot happened in BrOVENLOFT in 5 days.
22
a staggering amount, like,
and you're just in a timeout because you're lawful good.
or whatever. Yeah, it's like, or even like if you're like, you had to be like a specific, like you would have less penalties if you were evil. You had like almost no penalties, I think, if you were like, was it chaotic evil or something like that? I don't know. It was one of the evil alignments, and like you would have no problems getting in there. And foolish me, I said I put a Frogtown in there because of course, why not?
Why not?
Big mistake, because that was like trying to run Frogtown and the rest of it was just like no. So Frogtown ended up taking a backseat. They were mostly doing like diplomatic stuff, talking to people, and building moon pools across and facilitating shenanigans because Frogtown was chaotic evil. So we were building moon pools, which I kind of statted up as like so that was like what Frogtown was doing during the month of September, and instead of prep, we're making moon pools, which is basically like a portal between locations. You have to obviously bodies of water. You go in there, and like 10 minutes later, you end up on the other side. But you kind of have to know where you're going and where the pools are.
Okay.
So that's how like Frogtown was able
From
to.
the A. Merritt book, right? The Moon
Oh,
Pool.
absolutely, absolutely. It was absolutely inspired by Appendix N. Yep. Abraham Merritt's fantastic. Don't read Metal Monster. That's his bad one.
Okay.
It's the sequel to the Moon Pool, and only read it if you like reading scenes about people sitting on flying cubes in wonderment for several chapters. It's got good stuff in there, but man, the bad stuff is overwhelming. Like,
and when his prose gets purple, it can take a long time to get through the bad.
it can, and yeah, it's Ship of Ishtar, Face in the Abyss, all top notch adventure stuff.
Right on.
I think Face in the Abyss is a really underrated one from Merritt, because it's got like dinosaur riding it's got dinosaur riding cavemen. It's got a snake waifu. It's great. Trilopoulos, yes. Trilopoulos characters got in via the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks, because B-dubs, in B-dubs fashion, put in Twin Peaks as his faction.
Twin Peaks is where they bought the SUVs, right?
Yes, exactly. Late 80s, late model, early 90s.
Riding around BrOVENLOFT in a Bronco.
Yep, 4 Broncos.
Right on. All right, and, so the land grab. How long did the land grab take?
The land grab, it was open, so if anybody like kind of joined in, like it was like a week or two, I think, because excitement was fast, and like at a certain point, like I was like, oh shit, I got like 20 people. Yeah, okay, okay, we're done.
Yeah, no more.
It was like a soft cap. If somebody that I knew wanted to play, like I really wanted Jim Fear to play in the campaign, because I was going to try and encourage him to play the tall man from Phantasm.
Oh, nice.
As a faction, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. Like, he was busy and like just couldn't do that. Couldn't at the time. Which he'd be a great guest for your show, honestly, because I played with him a couple of times. He was in Trilopoulos a couple of times. He goes by Agent Dutch on Twitter now.
Okay, I don't know if I've ever made his acquaintance.
He's been off Twitter for a little while now. He's back.
Okay.
So, good dude. Very good dude.
You were holding out for him. Didn't happen. But at some point, you close the gate and say, "All right, the land grab is over. It's time.
Land grab is done." Especially and also like the factions, with the 1-to-1 time clock is ticking. You got to get ready for the starting line.
That's right.
So negotiations, trash talk. That's really when the trash talk between Gangsta Rapper and the Elf King took off. And that's also so yeah, fun thing in September is when Michaelmas happens. And we had the Pope as a faction in there. And I believe Macho Mandolf was talking about
hey,
Your Holiness, getting angels involved.
Trying to recruit some of those Monster Manual 2 angels.
Yeah. Well, guess what? That happened. Because okay. So what happened was, I was I believe it's a spell in Unearthed Arcana.
Okay.
It's a cleric, high level cleric spell. I believe it's an Unearthed Arcana, which was like basically commune or something like that. Where yes, you can bring a celestial power or some extraplanar being that you're trying to contact to you, and they can talk with you and stuff like that. And cool. And so so it was difficult kind of stuff, and I was like kind of looking at the various factions and kind of seeing what, if anything, like if they were believers in some capacity, or if they were like regretful, and like that would add to perhaps a to the total of the bonus or whatever that he would have to roll to succeed at.
Okay.
Because it was like 25% chance, I think, of success initially.
Yeah.
And just kind of like through wheeling and dealing and talking to like the various factions and stuff like that. And also like other possibly other campaigns or something like that. But it was like the percentage chance got up to bit like I want to say 50%.
Okay.
Like again, like a lot of it was wheeling and dealing. A lot of it was the Pope making diplomatic moves and everything.
It's the Pope, right?
Right. Like I think specifically the Count shed a single tear of regret about being damned from his faith, and that was like a +1. That it, but every little bit helped because on Michaelmas, that's when I rolled, and that's how the Pope got Saint Michael.
Wow.
Who was
Okay.
like we used these solar stats in the Monster
Okay.
Manual too. The solars are, boy, are they powerful.
So
Boy, are
he
they
got
powerful.
he got an archangel.
Yes. Yes. And initially it was just like, okay. And that's what led to World War Wish.
Okay.
Because solars can cast Wish at will. And I was like, no, 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 no,
Well,
no.
so how far into BrOVENLOFT did World War Wish happen? Like, was it right at the outset, or did it take a while to build up?
I think it was like quietly starting before the starting line, but it was kind of off the bat
Okay.
because I was getting wish requests very early on,
Who?
for multiple factions because there's high level spellcasters, right?
Yeah.
And so they had access to wish.
Looking
So
back, do you think that was a mistake starting him too high? I mean, you kind of had to balance out the high level monsters that were there, right?
well, the problem was, and this was something that I corrected later on, was Michael should have, well, one, okay, there's two things. One problem I corrected, and that was I had to give Michael to another player character as somebody to like
A
because
new NPC.
yeah, well, that's I believe that was Brigandine
Oh
behind this.
no!
So yeah,
So Briggs got
so
the Archangel Michael.
he got dragged into the campaign. He wasn't initially going to be involved in it really particularly.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, because like the Pope was like bombing civilian targets because he had been misled by guys like the Count and all of that. This was fifth generational warfare. This was like actual psyops happening. And like
And
The Pope was,
this is in the opening of this.
well, it was building up. It was building
Okay.
up. It was like the Pope wasn't like the Pope. Well, the Pope got the Candy Man, I believe, to bomb. Yeah, the Pope got the Candy Man to bomb Twin Peaks, I believe.
Okay.
Which Twin Peaks is just, you know, it's a lot of just normal civilian people there. It's just normal people going about their Northwestern Pacific early '90s lives. There's evil there, but it's not everybody's evil. It's not like bombing Eddie's domain, which, well, Eddie's domain also had a bunch of slaves in there too, which were, well, again, the Pope took a heavy hand because he was forced into taking a heavy hand because
Right on. Okay.
people were
So
people were people were people were like spreading lies about him, saying that he was allied with a vampire and stuff like that, or so
I feel like this part of the conversation is getting confusing, but I'm not sure how it cannot. Like,
um
I feel like this is a good sampling of all the stuff that immediately got thrown at you.
well, okay, no, what immediately got thrown at me was, and I was privy to this knowledge because it was planned. um so I'm there. It's like, September 31st is counting down. Clocks rolls over to midnight, October 1st. BrOVENLOFT's on. You can't leave without wishes. Like, you cannot leave BrOVENLOFT without wishes because that's just one of the things.
Yeah, you're
Because
stuck
wishes,
here until
if you can cast wish, yeah, wish can do all sorts of stuff. But otherwise, under normal circumstances, you're stuck. You can come in. You can come in. It's a Roach Motel. You can come in, but you can't leave until November. And immediately, the Elf King faction announces that the Elf King has been assassinated. It was immediate, like the second minute of October, and everybody's just like, "What?
how?
Who?
Yeah.
How? Who did it? What? Who did this? Who could have done that already?" Like, because people had been doing like low level conflict, but it was like, it was a gentleman's agreement that you're not going to like try and behead somebody else's faction immediately, like during September. And then immediately October, boom, Elf King is supposedly off the table, but his faction's still there, and he's got like So
people must have been shocked.
Oh, it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. And I'm sitting here laughing because I know the truth. It was a lie.
Oh.
He faked his death.
Yeah, but why would he fake it on the very first day when it wasn't
Mind games
possible?
Mind games.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Via Twitter, we knew that the Rat King had assassins on the board. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it
Mr.
was
Wargaming,
somewhat believable.
There were spies and assassins running around. So yes, people were thinking
the Rat King.
Yes, not Mr. Wargaming was the Rat King.
Okay.
The Rat King was actually located underneath the diner in Twin Peaks. So people are like wondering, where the hell's the Rat King? Where's the Rat King's hex? But that's the other thing. That's another reason why the Elf King took himself off the table, because he wasn't a target anymore. Because
yeah,
Elf King's dead. We don't have to worry about him as much anymore. Lies. Perfidious elves,
And then Fluid says, one wish paid for the Infernal Legion by teleporting all of the attendees of Woodstock 99 to fall off the waterfalls by the hotel in Twin Peaks, which blocked the river with bodies.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
that is happened. Crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That's right. Tsar Bombadil. As Bro Pan, there was an assassination attempt
in September before it even started.
Yes. Now,
my goodness,
there were.
So it
there
already
were several,
started...
because one of the assassination attempts was Jack Burton. Jack Burton failed, unfortunately.
Oh man. So
yeah. I wish I had session reports, but I was too busy running high-level things like DM requests and divination requests. Divination was huge because of the fog of war. So I didn't have time to run any sessions.
That's all right, man. We're making up for it here on This Is Dunder Moose tonight.
Now there were sessions. There absolutely were sessions played out.
So who was running sessions in BrOVENLOFT? Was it just you? Or did you have other DMs running?
Other DMs were running. I know the Trollopulus people got involved. Because at one point, Daddy Warpig messaged me saying, like, hey, there was a wish that popped off that something powerful is going to be sent after Eddie the Lich.
Okay.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to attack Eddie, but I got to think of something.
Right on.
Right.
So to jump back into the rules and the meat of it for just a second, how did you handle the fog of war? Did you have a plan, or were you reacting? And what advice would you give to another crazy event Braunstein DM who's trying to deal with fog of war?
Okay. So with the fog of war is fun. The fog of war is absolutely fun. Because the play, like, it's great as the DM, because like for instance, I knew the Elf Finder had faked his death, but nobody else did, and I thought that was hilarious. And I wasn't gonna tell anybody.
Yeah, you're not allowed to tell anyone.
No,
you just have to sit there and enjoy it.
Yeah, they're talking about how many assassination attempts there were on Bro Pan.
So when someone wants to do an assassination, they tell you, all right, I've sent one or more assassins against so-and-so, here's their level, and then you just roll on the assassination table in the DMG.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And also, like, if they got in there, Elf Finder ran some Red Frontier guys, because the Red Frontier guys were nuts, like real mad lad stuff. Like, wait, they were the ones who nuked Dublin.
Oh my gosh, nukes were involved.
Yeah, Dublin is Dublin is irradiated, but Dublin is still alive. It's just full of super mutants now. It just got greener.
I can't, like, I don't feel like I can keep up with this chat and maintain the thread of the conversation, because it is so crazy right now.
Oh yeah, no, Dublin is using Gamma World rules now.
So I'm just getting overwhelmed even just hearing about this.
Oh,
I can't imagine what you were going through
you
trying to
know,
keep the plates spinning.
you just hold on. Like that was the first thing I learned is just like there's no way I can. This is again as an experiment in complete player autonomy. I am literally a referee because like
Yeah.
most of what I'm doing is like I'm talking to other people and figuring out what divination spells are seeing what from who and like what they're going to tell me and like what specifically I have to ask for because I don't want to give them completely correct and complete answers because it's like, hey, you only asked me for this, so I'm going to only ask the player for this.
Yeah.
um
So here's a question, and it might answer some of the resistance that we get from this style of play from DMs that have been doing it for 40 years.
mhm.
How responsible did you feel? How much did you feel like your contributions played into how epic it seemed to be for all the players versus how much of that do you think was just on them?
um BrOVENLOFT was special because the energy was just across the board. Everybody was
Yeah.
hyped for it. Everybody was pumped for it. So they were happy and eager to go on Twitter or whatever and just
Mhm.
start talking mess, talking about their successes,
You
talking
didn't
how
have to
much.
pump it at all. It just had its
I didn't have to
own
pump it,
energy.
although every once in a while I would like I would try and like throw stuff at it. Like so for instance, like Eddie when Eddie had that wish, targeting him, um he had so it's like okay something powerful is going to attack Eddie, so it's like okay crap I got to look something up, and so I was like okay Eddie is based off of Iron Maiden's mascot,
Yeah.
so what do I like what can I do here, so okay well I don't want to do the Motorhead thing like the Motorhead mascot like yeah no so it's like instead I opened up like the King Arthur section of deities and demigods. I found an appropriately high level knight and I reskinned him as Rob Halford
Okay.
and I had him riding a metallic rock, um, like from the Screaming for Vengeance album.
Yeah. Right on,
But
man.
that's how he attacked Eddie, and so I worked it out because Eddie's player is Vince McMaximus.
So there's
So
just so
at
much
elite
there's so
level,
much
so much stuff.
cultural knowledge
Oh,
just laying
oh
around
yeah,
waiting to be used.
oh yeah. It's just steal everything, right?
It's almost
I'm not.
like surfing.
Roman,
You're just like surfing along the top of
yeah,
this
I was
wave.
I was surfing the Kali Yuga, man. It was just I was just like because like the campaign got out of my control in September,
Yeah.
right? Like it got out of my control in September because like it's at a certain point it's just like um you're answering requests. You're answering like divination requests, which by the way, in 1-to-1 time, divination is insanely useful. You want a
Okay.
player character to like make mad bank, make a divination magic user because patrons will hire you
Yeah.
because you are valuable.
Well, because like spies are going to take a long time, right? Because they got to travel
They got
out,
to travel
and then
there. Yeah, if you
you
got a
got to
crystal ball,
yeah.
Eddie got attacked by a better band. Yeah, but Eddie won because he may have had the staff of Asmodeus by that point. Uh, so how
So there's
granular were the orders? Okay, um, the orders tended to be uh, varying. I definitely asked for more information, especially when like armies were on the move.
Mhm.
Because armies would take time to move, so I wanted to know. I wanted updates as to like what hexes the armies were in certain days because it'll take several days for them to get there.
Yeah.
Um, which again, it's like that was a lot of things because one of the early battles was Cenk the Turk was atta-
Cenk,
because what Cenk, yeah, Cenk, it was
the
he
young
was the
Turk.
yeah, he was the Turks, um, which he was more of like a merchant faction kind of thing because he was like a Turkish caravan merchant kind of thing. But they did also have cannons because that's what the Turks were into in real
Yeah.
life. So some bombards were very powerful. However, it wasn't enough because he was kind of isolated and bushwhacked pretty early by I want to say Eddie and some of the others. And cannons are good, but when you've just got like regular caravan guards trying to fight off a black dragon and uh, tanks, I'm not 100% sure where the tanks came from. I think Eddie arranged
Wow.
that.
So
But yeah.
that was that Christian Bale movie where the dragons and the tanks and
Oh, Rain of Fire, probably.
yeah. So you've
Yeah,
got
that's.
Ring of Fire happening for real.
But I'm just like, oh, there's tanks in BrOVENLOFT now. Well, I mean, there's Ford Broncos, so I mean, I can't stop it. I can't stop it. Like, I can't think. Like, I'm too busy answering divination requests to stop it. They snuck tank M1 Abrams into the campaign. I'm like, okay,
So
like
like,
that was.
how many requests were you getting? Like, was your phone just blowing up all day,
Yes,
and
yes.
you did nothing to try and like curb the amount of communication you were getting?
Well, I mean, because a lot of it was, um, one faction is gonna, like, let's say, um, let's say the Pope is asking for a divination spell on somebody, like on another faction. So he wants to know what, like, the count is up to, right?
Hmm.
So that's one request, right? And it's like, okay, so I will and send a message to the counts player, see, and ask him specifically, like, okay, this, like, I need to know, like, this information, like, tell me about, like, what this situation is, or like where this army is, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one request, and by itself, like, that would be like the request for the day from the Pope kind of thing. But then you force multiply that across the factions.
So times 20. Like, did
Roughly,
everyone
I
have
mean,
divination?
at with high level patrons, yeah, you basically do, or you'll have underlings that have divination spells or something like that.
So you're
So
getting 20 requests a day at least,
at
and having
least,
to follow
and
up.
and sometimes I have to follow, like, I have to ask other, like, multiple people on the same thing, so I'm waiting a little bit on to hear from them on that. So it's like, a lot of it is messaging back to, like, okay, request sent, please hold. I got to get a response back from the player.
This is so ridiculous. Chank
Can't
gave
give
up
up.
his wife, Anna Kasparian.
Oh, Anna, I believe Anna got mummified, um, by Kangsta's people. I believe so.
Oh man.
Because yeah, there was a dark alliance. There was two dark alliances. Because there was, like, Eddie and Kangsta and Frogtown, because I was kind of surrounded by them, and Bropan was involved, and then there was the Count, the Elf King, and well, and also Bropan.
So it was a lot. Did you have that moment of panic where you're like, what did I sign on for? They're all depending on me. I don't know if
Yes,
I can do this for a
yes.
month.
Oh, that was daily. Like, at a certain point, it's just like, oh god, what have I gotten? Like, this is my life now.
Yeah. Well, because
Like, this is my second job now.
I feel like the curator hit that moment as well.
Yeah,
And we
and
kinda
honestly,
before go ahead.
no. Yeah, so, like, yeah, how did I deal with that? Well, one, you learn to live with the pain. But no. What I really did was I kind of like I had no story going into this. There was no overarching plot. There was no everybody outside of, like, the Pope and the Elffinder and uh the Witchfinder general, the Protestant Witchfinders. Although
Okay.
unfortunately they were not a major factor on the board. There was a, I mean, there was Werewolf McQuaid, and he had a volcano, but he wasn't tremendously active in the campaign either. I mean, again, certain things happen, right? Like, um, there was actually
Werewolf
supposed to be another
McQueen.
Muppet faction, um,
Oh.
Gonzo and his Dark Carnival. Unfortunately, real life got in the way. The player had to bow out. Unfortunately,
That would have
it's
been epic. Gonzo.
oh, it'd have been amazing. It would have been
His
amazing because he
dark
was like, because
carnival.
like his idea was he wanted to, like, kind of go around other campaigns and kind of trick people into BrOVENLOFT.
He's kinda like the Vistani
Yeah,
from
except Gonzo instead of, like, gypsies. Yeah,
his chicken wife.
yeah.
That's so amazing. So
Ah.
amazing. All right, so were you aware, like, I don't know if, like, you just got burned out and checked out, or if you were aware of Broriental Adventures, like, did you feel kinship or sympathy or at
I
least understanding with the curator with what he went through?
so I mean, after BrOVENLOFT, I went on hiatus because it,
Mhm.
it it did take a lot. It was just exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting. Um, and so, like, I was aware of Broriental Adventures, like, when it was kicking off. I was like, hey, good luck to you. You
Yeah.
know, I think it was like, I I don't remember if I gave, like, any advice, but sort of like, you know, don't remember if I gave any advice. I honestly don't remember at this point. But it was just sort of like, hey, good luck to you, because I was like on a D&D break. Like I was just
Yeah.
yeah. I did burn out a bit. Yes. So like there were things that I learned from BrOVENLOFT that I kind of wished I had put down on paper, like not too long after. But it's just I just couldn't stare at the map anymore for like
Yeah.
a couple of months.
So what would
And so like
be
so
some of the
big
things you
lessons,
would have
yeah.
written down? Yeah, big lessons,
So
takeaways.
big lessons. So I would delegate multiple DMs. It was the big thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, because like it's overwhelming for a single person to do it. It's very overwhelming. I ended up overwhelmed. Like the way I dealt with it is just like, I'm just gonna keep adjudicating rules, because like I'm just gonna let it happen, man. Just let it happen. Just ride it out. Like just like that Legend of Zelda meme where it's just like Link, like Toon Link from like Wind Waker, and he's hanging off of a ledge, and it's just like, let go. Is the it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, just let go. Like let it happen. Ride it out, man. Ride the high. Like story, what story? The story is the Battle of Cecilvania. The story is, Bropan's wedding. It's
Yeah. Propane got married?
He did successfully. Um yeah, he finally married his green-eyed girl. And then he was shortly a widow, but yeah, or yeah.
My goodness.
So yeah, what I would recommend is definitely delegate. If you can get multiple people that you trust as DMs,
Hmm.
um, I would recommend that. Like maybe have like a guy doing mass combat. Maybe have, because I can get into like, we can, like, I don't want to get too far into the Battle of Cecilvania because it was huge and it was time consuming, and it kind of deserves its own, like, if you want to do a round table, you should do that, because like that would be a good one, because
Oh yeah.
that was the proto battle Braunstein before we even knew what that was. And it
Heck
was a
yeah, we
me-
need to do
and,
that. That
and
needs
it
to be
was
an
a
episode.
and it was a mess, because part of it was me. Part of it was me, because like the count had orders on his territory being invaded, and I was just like, oh, we'll arbitrate it at the day of the battle. But it's like, no, I should have arbitrated that beforehand. That was my mistake.
Okay.
But I was also juggling so many different things. So like I would recommend having multiple like DMs, like multiple refs. So if you have like a guy, you know, handling like divination, you would have like a guy handling battles, something like that. I would
Yeah.
recommend that. Somebody that you could obviously share like you could share the stuff, and like obviously as DMs you would have, you'd have a DM lounge or something like that where you could talk about what's going on. Like they would,
Yeah,
DMs would
because
have
you
no
don't
reason.
know ahead of time what all stuff you're gonna need to delegate. Like,
Yeah,
you didn't
exactly.
know
No.
divination was gonna be such a big part of the
I
job.
had an idea, because I had already like it had come up in conversation in the past. Like divination would be fantastic with 1-to-1 time because of fog of war considerations,
Yeah.
and then everybody else realizes that at the same time, you know. So yeah, like a divination thing, like somebody handling wishes. I would have had like I would have brought in a neutral party, somebody not involved in the campaign to handle the wishes, somebody to really think up monkey's paw scenarios for the wishes,
Yeah.
because these are BrOSR players, and they think about how to game wishes and wording them very, 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 very specifically. And so like I'm looking for reasons to be a dick on the wishes.
Yep. Screw it
I'm
up.
trying. I am trying hard.
It's like it's almost not even worth making a wish. Don't you lose like a year of your life to do it too?
I think we looked at that. Not quite.
Okay.
I again, it's been without the rules on hand, I can't say, but we did end up kind of like putting a cooldown on the wishes, especially Michael's wishes, and that was another reason why I wanted to have another player control Michael, because it's like, it's the Pope's automatic wish machine, and
Yeah.
that's far too unbalanced.
It's broken.
Like, and I didn't care about balance particularly, but that at that point, like World War Wish was hilarious until it was kind of like, okay, because what ended World War Wish was the Pope, actually, because the Pope stipulated a wish that, and I'm still not going to say the reason, like what it is, to the people that don't know it, because it's still
So
in
there's
effect in
still some
BrOVENLOFT.
fog of war going on right
Oh
now,
no,
is
no,
what you're
like
telling me.
there's a specific phrase that needs to be said in order to make a wish,
All right.
and it is a specific phrase that no devil or demon will ever willingly say.
Okay.
And that
Got
is
it.
why Asmodeus was stuck in BrOVENLOFT. And why any major demon was stuck in BrOVENLOFT until the end of the month. Asmodeus was killed, quote unquote. You can't really kill him, but he was destroyed physically during the Battle of Cecilvania
Okay.
by Michael, I
So
believe.
awesome.
And
so awesome.
so his spirit, he can, like, his spirit's just stuck on BrOVENLOFT. He's just an angry, helpless spirit, which, you know, that's kind of appropriate in a Miltonian sense.
Yeah. And
But
it feeds into the creepy,
oh yeah, and the vibes. And so, I mean, obviously, in November he could go back to the Nine Hells or wherever.
But for now, he's a ghost in
But yeah, for like
BrOVENLOFT.
the rest of the month, he was a ghost, and Eddie the Lich just stole his rod. And Eddie still technically has the rod. Like, he still has Asmodeus's rod in BrOVENLOFT. Eddie was also buried under a lot of rubble in his dungeon lair because the Pope bombed him.
Okay. All right. So
yeah, Bropan. Yeah, that's true. Bropan sacrificed the city of 4,000 to summon Asmodeus. Now,
totally worth it, he says.
Asmodeus did end up, I believe, alpha striking Kangsta, which. So yeah,
Okay.
okay. So if we can get back to the Cecilvania, yeah, it was very much was Saint Michael bound by loyalty to henchmen? He was bound by duty to protect the innocent people of both Rome and the rest of BrOVENLOFT. And so, like, Michael or the Pope made a very strong case that there is a lot of evil in BrOVENLOFT.
Yeah.
But I'm also watching the daily updates from Mr. Wargaming's channel about what's going on with Stormbringer, because
Because you don't know when that thing might show up, right?
that could show up in my
Oh
campaign,
my
or it
god.
could show up in somebody else's campaign, at which point Michael be like, "Oh no, this is more important. I got to go."
I'm out.
Like there was the
Yeah.
very much stipulation that Michael was like, I if something important comes up, I'm out."
Right on. And I do want to point out, asked and answered, Fluid says angels are immune from time lost, and Macho says when your wishes are coming from an angelic being,
Oh yeah.
aging isn't a
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of the other beings that were casting wishes are like liches and undead, and
yeah.
yeah.
So
So
what was
that's a mitigating
Castlevania?
thing. So Cecilvania was
Like Sesame Street, Transylvania?
it, it yeah, let me okay, so I gotta try and find something first, because
Okay.
Hollyfeld, the great Hollyfeld, who was a player in the campaign,
Okay.
um he ended up doing a a video of basically like a music video recap using like pixel art. Oh, I did find it.
The
Great.
guy's
I'll,
amazing with that
oh, he's fantastic. And
animation that he uses. I don't know what he uses, what software he uses, but it is so
he
awesome.
mentioned it and I forgot, but it was incredible because, like, all the ridiculous stuff you see in that clip is what happened during the battle. So, like, yeah, Eddie brought his tanks. Like, there were the Count had a bunch of like vampires and zombies, like trying to run, like, you know, do ambush tactics against the incoming columns of. No, it wasn't RPG Maker. I don't remember what it was. Maybe I don't think it was. But
I was gonna say like what's the Adobe one?
it might have been that. Not
I
important at the
forgot what
moment.
it's called. Anyway.
But yeah, so the problem was, like, the Count had orders for like attacks to begin on any invaders, you know, as it happened, but I was very busy with stuff and I had forgot I was going to do it during the, the actual battle, but it's like, no, this would have taken like the day before and it would have whittled down forces. So that got the thing off to a rough start. The sense of scale, it took us a while to figure out the sense of scale, because like a mass battle on that scale was very new to me, and I think it was probably new to a couple other players. Um, and so that caused delays, miscommunications, a little bit here and there on my part,
Yeah.
misunderstandings on my part. Um, and then also, um, there was another faction that decided to ambush during the battle, which I I wasn't sure how to handle it, and so I had them show up during the battle, and it's like everybody was already, like, we were slogging through a couple of turns already, because it was we had not worked out how to work it out, and so to my great regret, because people have jobs and people have like lives and stuff, we did actually end up having to stretch the Battle of Cecilvania out of over a couple of days. And so that was the one thing in the campaign that was doing stop time, and it was bad. Don't like,
Okay.
because like, yeah, no, if you're gonna do a battle like that, do like what Jeffro's Braunstein battle Braunsteins did. What B-Dubs' battle bronze, like, yeah, the red kegger. That's better. That solved the problem of the Battle of Cecilvania.
So
But yeah, no,
I think I've got the animation up here. Let's
yep,
see.
that's the animation of it. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, those are the vampires attacking the tank column. Yeah,
So
those are Eddie's
gorgeous.
tanks. Yep,
There's a zombie getting run over.
Yep, all of that happened. All of that happened. Yep, all of that happened. Yes, there was
artillery.
Yes, there's the count. Yeah, I don't like. They got artillery from somewhere. Yeah, I think that's. I don't remember who that's supposed to be.
It looked like David Bowie.
Might have been Asmodeus.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, those are the elf. Yes, the hippogriffs. The hippogriff. So the story behind that was hilarious, because that was the Elf King's hippogriffs, right?
Yeah.
Because he had elves on hippogriffs and everything. And Eddie's tanks had banners. They had banners with like power word on them and stuff like that. And it was like power word sleep. And elves are immune to sleep, right?
Yeah, they can't be put to sleep.
And so like the Elf King's like, haha, we can't be slept.
Yeah.
That doesn't apply to hippogriffs. And
So
there's Michael.
So
it's just a whole squadron of hippogriffs just falling out of the sky asleep, and all the elves going down with them. It's nuts.
So cinematic.
It was hilarious, because I was just like, okay, the elves are immune to sleep, so that's part of the banner thing, and I get that. But wait a minute, our hippogriffs are. Oh yeah, and then there was a Tarrasque that was summoned. Yes, I believe that was a gate spell.
The Dacrosaurus.
No, well, it wasn't the Dacrosaurus that I was rolling for, because the Dacrosaurus that I was rolling for was specifically going to be controlled by not John Dacre. It had a Hawaiian shirt on. It had socks and sandals, the whole 9 yards. You know, it's Godzilla.
Get him every time.
It's a Godzilla as a Florida man. I mean,
yeah.
So, so this thing was just gated in from somewhere else. I don't know. I don't care where. And he tore things up for a couple of turns. And while all of this battle was going on, Dorinal's player character, a wizard, snuck into the castle and looted it. So like,
way to go, Dorinal.
So while the players had kind of figured this, like they had figured out the order of battle and like the turn sequence, and as we figured it out, it got a lot faster, thankfully, because again, this took like 4 days real time, like four evenings of real time, because it was difficult to coordinate everything. If you battle Braunstein, the modern battle Braunstein solves the problem of Cecilvania. It solves the problems we had during the Battle of Cecilvania, from what I could tell, because nobody was having fun with the Battle of Cecilvania, but we were so committed to finishing it that it was just like, we got to finish this.
So it was just like a slog, is what you're saying.
It turned into a slog, because it was definitely initiative by side. It was absolutely initiative by side. But again, we're talking like armies in the hundreds of thousands, right? And it's just like, you know, and including large numbers of spellcasters.
Yeah, Neutraloculus. Zenkar the Betrayer claimed the high score for BrOVENLOFT.
Oh, it was great, because like while they were working the battle and while the Tarrasque is kind of stomping around the building, breaking towers and stuff, I'm rolling with Dorinal to see like, okay, are you spotted? You know, are you seen by anybody? Because not really, because they're busy with bigger things.
Dorinal objects to the nuking Troloculus.
I thought that was Jeffro. I thought that was Jeffro, because that was thematic.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
This is bigger than any of us.
Yeah.
Well, that gets back to the point I want to make, though, is like, I wonder if that's part of the resistance that conventional DMs have is you are forced as a referee DM to let go of it and not be the hero. Right?
I was very reactive.
It wasn't your brilliant story that you were slowly revealing to the players, and they appreciate you for all your sacrificial martyrdom And it's like, even though you were like working yourself to the bone, it sounds
Oh
like.
God, I was almost ready to start pulling my hair out. If it was another month, because I was doing this for 2 months. I was doing
Oh
this
my
for two
gosh,
months, like
September and
almost straight.
October.
September and October. Like you think, oh, BrOVENLOFT, it pops off in October. No, it began in September. Like for me, it popped off in September, and
Yeah,
I think it is a control issue. Like my entire attitude was, again, player autonomy. That was the thing I kept going. This is player autonomy. This is an experiment.
yeah.
Boy, did I learn a lot. Cecilvania was a very, very strong learning experience, right? It was
What?
my low point because I considered that my failure, and yet it produced a video like Hollyfeld's, which is absolutely hilarious, and it's incredible. And it's like that was the most flattering thing that I saw. Like, wow, my insane botched grand battle Braunstein led to at least some kind of thing like that.
What would have happened had you tried to control it?
Oh, it would have fallen apart. I think it would have
Okay.
fallen apart. I think if I had like a story or a plot in mind, like, oh, you guys got to unite you got to set your differences aside, and you got to fight the even bigger bad Dark Lord. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, the world building prep I did was I made the map,
Would it be
and it was
fair to
just like it,
say?
and I was like a divine watchmaker kind of god. We're just like, okay, we're set the play in motion and see what shakes out.
Yeah, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. But would it be fair to say that maybe that was one of the differences between your experience and the curators, was that he was very married to the setting that was in Yoon Soon. He just loves the Yoon Soon module. He loves that setting and that world. And I wonder, and I can talk to him about this too.
Mhm.
Um, but I wonder if maybe that was the breaking point. Was he was trying to control the chaos. I guess
I mean
it's
that
not fair
that
for me to ask you to answer that from his perspective, but like, would you say
right.
from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, if I was I don't want to say it's like, oh, the attempted novelist approach or whatever, because there's a
Hmm.
lot of that said about like whatever. And I can't speak to curator and his experience about it specifically because I didn't really follow it too much,
Okay.
especially at the time it was going on. Like I gave him the thumbs up and good luck kind of thing before it popped off, I remember, but I was just like, but when it actually happened, I was just very busy with real life stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um so I didn't really follow it at the time. Then I just heard about it. It it ended the way it did, and I was just like, well, that's a bummer. Um But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's
So I had him on
well,
my
yes,
show, and
right.
I think he felt the way about it that you probably felt about Cecilvania. That
Hmm.
it was a mistake and it was a failure and it didn't work.
Yeah,
But then my next show, I had his patrons come on and he
right,
was watching and he got to see how much fun they had anyway.
right.
And so I don't know if he knew at the time how much fun we were having playing in that. Were you aware when you were in the midst of all this that like your players were just having the time of their lives? Like, did you feel that the
Um,
whole time?
in September, absolutely. Again,
Yeah.
Cecilvania was a drag for everybody because there's this 1-to-1 time campaign, and like we're doing stop time to figure out this battle, and the outcome of this battle is going to have ramifications on the rest of the campaign. And it was just like, I'm frustrated with myself because I saw it as my own personal failure on that.
Okay.
Which, so that's I sympathize very much with that because like that was me not applying the rules efficiently.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so it's one of those things. But like the actual campaign and the Braunstein itself, I thought was a incredible success.
Right
Because
on.
even after Battle of Cecilvania, which I kind of like, that definitely put me off of large scale battles for a little while. I was like, I don't want to adjudicate another one right away.
Yeah. Done with that
Um,
crap.
because I'm just like, nobody was having fun at that moment. Like the vibe was there. It's just like nobody's having fun. Like people getting like IRL stressed.
Yeah.
So it was just like that's not what we want with
How
this. We
long did
wanted
that did the Battle of Pennsylvania take up in the grand scheme of the 2 months you were doing this?
in game it would have been like a day or
Okay.
two. Uh, Real time, like trying to adjudicate it with like and trying to juggle schedules and everything. It was like 4 or 5 days, four or
Okay.
five evenings, and that was the other part of the problem. Is like this needs to This
That
needs to
is
be
a
settled.
long time to
Well, I
not
mean,
be.
it was like hashing out rules. And it was trying to figure out like the exact proportion of like things and all that. Once it was figured out, it moved a lot smoother. But like those first couple of turns were brutal.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
again,
Folder Bloat says, once you manage to get a few thousand HD versus a few thousand HD, it gets a bit out of control.
yeah, it does. Because like again, you have to kind of go to an abstract level with a lot of it. It's like you've got spellcasters, but you may have like an army of like low level wizards or whatever, and it's just like if you're gonna try and have them like cast individual spells, you're
Oof. Yeah.
insane. Don't do that.
Yeah.
No, no. Like you have a unit of wizards, and they're gonna cast magic missile.
Right.
And that's going to scale up to whatever force they're hit or something like, or fireball,
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. So it's like you gotta abstract it out. You gotta abstract it up. So
Right
so
on.
while Cecilvania was my low point of the campaign, it was still a very valuable learning experience.
Hmm.
Very valuable learning experience. So again, I recommend multiple DMs, which I think uh Oriental Adventures had.
Yeah, there were multiple
Uh,
session DMs
yeah,
running.
right. I mean,
And
yeah, yeah,
I know Curator had a lot of advice from
right,
people that had experience with this kind of stuff.
right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, props to curator for absolutely trying, right? Like
Right
absolutely
on.
props to him for trying because that's it's not an easy feat. It is not an easy feat. Um, it is stressful to keep it going for a long time, especially at a positive energy level. Yeah, and then
Authoritative
wrangling.
News Network asked, were you wrangling across time zones as well?
Um, a little bit here and there. It was mostly, I think, in the U.S. Although Macho Mandolf or
Yeah.
Australian is involved, but he wasn't as involved directly. I think he was doing like session play stuff with the
Hmm.
Gnome King and stuff like that. But he wasn't involved in like the Grand Battle Braunstein stuff because well, it was the gnomes.
Yeah. Brian says communication delays are a killer. If they
Yeah,
just sent the orders of battle and let him play it solo, it could have been faster. But the temptation is not to take that away from the players.
yeah, yeah. That's another way it could go. That's another way it can go.
And he said he did similarly. It struggled with it in Trilopulus. But
Yeah.
Dorno points out, you guys did great. What a battle.
Okay, great.
So
That's because you made out like a bandit, Darnell.
he's just stealing everything while they're fighting.
You could have had
So
that bat shield if you wanted.
did World War Wish happen before the Battle of Cecilvania?
Yes. Yes.
So
World War Wish kind of happened like for like the first half or so, first 2 weeks, I think.
okay. So while we're on
Um,
the kind of bummer part of the story,
yeah.
like there were some people that weren't best pleased with what happened as a result of that. Yes.
Yes, there were a couple of player characters that got wished out by very
So
specific wording. Um,
how did you feel when you get that instruction? Like, here's my wish spell, and
well,
I want this other NPC to no longer be able to take part in this crazy Braunstein that we're all doing.
I mean, yeah. So that happened to two NPCs, like two. Well, it happened to Jeffro,
Hmm.
because his character Zanzel was wished out, and it happened to Vince McMaximus, who's also wished out, and I was personally disappointed about Vince McMaximus being wished out because he was doing some moves on the side. He
Yeah,
was he had his it's Vince McMaximus. He had a side hustle. Of course he
of
did.
course he did. Yeah,
And it involved the goddess Inanna, the
right
goddess
on.
the Sumerian goddess of love and war. And he was collecting magic weapons for her and offering them to her temple because hey baby, you know.
Yep.
And she was really smitten with him. She's still smitten with him.
So did
she,
Vince
she
do
misses
something
him.
to draw the eye of the Pope or Sauron or whoever it was
Um
that wished him out? Like, was
I
he a
think
threat?
I think out of kayfabe, the person that wished him out did not want him to die in BrOVENLOFT.
Oh, okay.
I
So it
think
was
that
like
was
to save his life.
it was the wisher saw it as a mercy.
Okay.
Now with Jeffro, I don't know. I think Jeffro was recognized as a high level threat,
Yeah.
and it was just a way to get him off the table.
So did you have conversations with either of those players after that happened? And
A
like,
little bit. I mean, Jeffro, like I did end up talking, like obviously looking at the wish kind of situation, and what I ended up doing with the wish thing to add a little bit of monkey's paw into it
hmm
was I ended up doing like a little table to see which campaign they would end up in, because that was not stipulated where they went.
Yeah, they just wanted them out.
They just wanted them out of there without memories of how to get back in or any memories of the past month or so.
Yeah.
Zanzo was level 11 and wasn't a threat to anyone.
Level 11 was no threat. Okay.
Sure he was.
Yeah, Vince had a higher calling. He needed to kill Amala. And Vince would go on to turn everyone in his world besides himself a Muppet.
See, the mind virus is spreading.
Have we seen Zanzel since he was in which campaign did he go into?
Zanzel ended up, I believe, in the Red Frontier.
Oh, okay.
I believe he ended up in the Red Frontier.
Out, even if Zanzel wasn't a threat, Jeffro is always
Jeffro is a threat, yes. Which well, that's the thing, right? There's also no reason to not roll up a new character within the campaign, within the setting.
Yeah.
Because like there were several characters. Like Doranel's character was a player character, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Vince was a player character, and they were just kind of latched on to the bigger factions. They were part of, I believe, Kangsta's alliance.
Okay.
And like in September, I had actually been part of a session in Trollopolis. We went through the White Lodge, which was the White Lodge. Well, here's Redgar again. Redgar the fighter, most boring man in Trollopolis. He ended up being part of a campaign to or like a session that ended up clearing a lodge in the mountains out of a family of ogres. And Redgar's he's like level 5 or whatever, and I'm thinking, okay, let's not burn this lodge down. we can use this as a forward outpost for the Pegasus Corps.
There you go.
And so we cleaned it up and everything, and then
it cracks me up with all these colorful characters that like just making a boring schmuck. You stand out so much in a BrOSR campaign. Because you're like, I'm the least interesting man in Trollopolis. And was like, ooh.
And yet he's a witness to all this insanity.
You don't have a crazy hook or gimmick? You're just
none.
A dude that wants a job?
No, I was lucky I had a name for him day one.
Did you ever see the Viva La Dirt League where they're talking about how when they go in, there's this mysterious stranger in the corner booth in the tavern, and then like all the players fixate on the waitress, and like she's clearly making up details about herself on the spot. It's like you were the waitress in that scenario.
I didn't even bother making up details about myself. I'm just repeating stuff that the character saw. So yeah, like Redgar was basically cleaning up the lodge as like a little mini domain for himself. And then Trollopolis got nuked in
oh man,
in September, and Redgar was outside and he got irradiated.
Oh no.
So he's lost some charisma points.
Is he like Paul Muad'Dib? He has to go off into the desert without his eyes.
No, he's just a lot uglier than he was before, and also he's got like some Gamma World ability that allows him to drain HP from enemies and stuff like that. So it's a vampiric ability, but he's not vulnerable to sunlight or anything. He's just ugly now.
He's Deadpool. You made him Deadpool.
Well, kind of, except he's wearing like White Dragon scale armor, because that was another situation that he was involved with.
That's pretty cool.
Where it was him and Macho Mandolf's elf character, fighter, cleric, thief, I believe, luring away 2 white dragons from a lair that the rest of the party was going to loot, and we're like, we're on a Pegasus, so we're going to outrun the things, but we're not going to be able to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, well, wait a minute, we know where there's a friendly copper dragon, an adult copper dragon, so we're like, okay, we're just going to fly to him. And we're going to make this part of his problem now.
Macho will find a way.
And then we ended up getting the reinforcements from the rest of the Pegasus Corps, and the White Dragons were taken down. And that's how Redgar got a set of White Dragon scale armor.
He's like the secret hero of all of Trollopolis.
Again, he doesn't do anything really, but he benefits from stuff.
Nice.
Like his first session, he almost drowned in a sewer. I mean, because a carrion crawler paralyzed him.
Oh man.
So it was expendable to me. I was just like, okay, this character is gonna die, so let's just whatever. I'm not gonna give him details.
So what ended the wishes? Like
Well, what
clearly
ended
that was unsustainable, right?
well what ended was the Pope ended up putting that trigger phrase onto the wishes,
Oh,
and
okay.
none of the other patrons really knew about it. Macho Mandolf knows what the phrase is. I'm pretty sure he's not telling.
Okay, so
Unless
there's like a code
it's
word to even use
it's
a wish now.
yeah, that's what it is.
And is
And that
that
is still in
just
effect.
in
In
BrOVENLOFT?
BrOVENLOFT, in BrOVENLOFT,
Okay.
yeah. It doesn't matter about I don't care about other campaigns.
Yeah.
I don't care about inferior campaigns. No,
All right.
it's
Sweet. So there is still fog of war going on even
oh,
to this day.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. I mean,
amazing.
the like
That's awesome.
there I stopped running like BrOVENLOFT stuff in November,
Hmm.
and there has been play going on still.
Oh yeah. Well,
I mean,
Macho was my
Dublin.
DM during October this year, and
Yeah.
we found ourselves
Oh
in
yeah, you
a
guys fought you fought the Digrosaurus, I think, right?
no, we
Or
were
it
in
was there. Well,
a
somebody was.
labyrinth under Kangsta's
Oh,
pyramid.
okay. Yeah.
We wound up fighting like we found ourselves in a Pac-Man maze.
Wonderful.
And there was yeah, it was Tupac Man, so it was like Tupac Shakur Pac-Man.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
amazing.
okay.
It was really cool.
Yeah, no, because
So,
I know Dublin has been running sessions using Gamma World ever since.
oh, okay.
It may not be a completely regular thing, but they have been running
Is
like
Candyman running Dublin?
yes.
Okay.
And that is, I believe, Robert Stevens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy cracks me up.
Yeah. Oh, he's young, but he's elite level. He's young, but he's elite level.
Right on.
And so it's like, yeah, I mean, like, so like, and again, BrOVENLOFT was going to happen this year. I had a couple of other referees lined up, excellent people, good guys, elite level players, and activated a giant Sphinx mecha in the
Oh yeah, I
Dakosaurus.
missed that session. So yeah, the Dakosaurus did get involved.
Yeah,
Giant
yeah.
Sphinx mecha.
Now the Dakosaurus is Kangster Rapper's biggest fan.
Oh.
So he awoke during BrOVENLOFT 1, um, wanting after the Battle of Cecilvania and after Kangsta had been killed, and he wanted to get his new singles, you know, and he was his
Yeah.
biggest fan. He was going to see him and all that stuff, and he was very very unhappy when he found out about that. Now at that point, Kursova had decided to build his Highway of Light, which is just a line of zombies just standing along the road, all with continual light cast on them,
Yeah, the cast
and they
continual
don't
light
do it.
on
They
the
don't
zombies.
do anything. They're
They're just
literally just a
lamps.
road of light. Yes. Yes, it's like Hands Across America, but it's just zombies that are glowing. They're not doing anything. They're just there.
They're just watching people travel.
I mean,
It's got to
maybe
be
I
the
don't know. I'm not.
creepiest journey.
If they are, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's BrOVENLOFT. It's creepy anyway.
Love it. There's so much. It's like there's griffins falling out of the sky
Oh,
with
it's
elves
it's
on them. There's
it's
a road of lit zombies.
yeah. Like he had a road going up to where. Oh yeah, the Pope has basically made Rome inaccessible outside of specific circumstances. It's not the Benedict option; it's the Gondolin option. If you're familiar with the Silmarillion,
Okay,
uh,
that's a deep cut, but I think
yeah,
I was
it's
actually um
people want to figure out how to get in there, but they haven't yet.
yeah.
If they did, that'd be a problem for Rome.
Oh man, what is
Um,
this?
so
Brian says
yeah,
they were a useful landmark when they Halo jumped into Bropan, Vietnam. Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. I could not come up with the stupidity by myself. I couldn't. I couldn't come up with anything nearly as interesting as this. It's inmates running the asylum, and it's kind of great. Now,
I feel like we could go for hours on all the stories of
right.
stuff that happened. For those of you that weren't aware, like now, do you understand why I got fascinated with the Broasar in the first place? It wasn't about the dunking. It wasn't about the fights on Twitter. I was just watching people have the time of their lives, just doing the craziest junk that I had never happened in a D&D campaign that I'd played in, and I was like, I want to be part of that. I had the FOMO while all of this was going on. I was confused. I was
Hmm.
watching from the outside, and it led me to post on Twitter that playing in Trelopulus is on my gamer bucket list. And I think it was like the very next day I got an email from Macho Mandoff, and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna give you a shot. Why don't you come on in and see what this is about?" And man, awesome stuff.
So, like, yeah, I know we're rounding up, but like, so
Oh,
one
we
thing
don't need
too.
to. We can go
Oh,
all night,
okay.
bro.
Well, I got to work in the morning, but
Yeah.
so I mean,
No,
like, okay,
I've
so
been
one of the
waiting for
things
this.
too. So one of the things too was that so I did step away. I was going to try and run it this year. It didn't work out for various
Mhm.
reasons. I mean, some of the players couldn't come back and do stuff. You know, the count wasn't able to. Gangsta wasn't able to. Bunch of it just didn't work out this year, right?
Yeah.
And there was like a lower energy for it, even though I had a couple of refs lined up because that was one of the corrections I wanted to have. Was like, I want to have multiple refs and we can delegate stuff and do stuff like that. Like somebody can be in charge of diplomacy and fog of war stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Because again, it's overwhelming for one person. That
Yeah.
is the big takeaway. It is very overwhelming for one person, and you need to be insane or stupid like I was to do it. Now, it was fun, absolutely, I don't regret it at all because it was the most exciting thing in D&D going on in 2022.
Ever.
Like,
Like you guys
and
made history.
I'm not even, like, exaggerating, like, I had never seen anything like that, I had never been part of anything like that, and it was just unbridled creativity and stupidity walking hand in hand through, like, a spooky Halloween town, you know?
Yeah.
And it was wonderful, but, yeah, so I wanted to run it again this past year, didn't work out. B Dubs threw the gauntlet down
Yes, he
recently
did
about
on
battle
my
brown
show.
scenes. Yes. Yes. So therefore, in order to keep my cred, even though I did run a battle Brownstein already and it was a
That's
shit
right.
show. It was a shit show. Um I intend to do a new battle Brownstein this year, this month,
Excellent.
hopefully. And hopefully
Well,
I'll
you
have
got till
actual
June. You got till
well
June.
no, but I have Dublin already there,
Okay.
active and existing, and it's March. So we're gonna run March Madness somehow, some way.
March of Madness. I love it. I have an idea. It's still I'm still percolating it. I think it would be fun if somebody's willing to run it, to get a bunch of guys like Dornall and other folk that are comfortable streaming on YouTube,
Mm,
and like pull the curtain back
do
and
it live. Interesting.
do it live and multi-channel. So if people like really want to study it, like they can watch it from one person's perspective and then go back and watch it from the other. I don't know if anybody would be up for that. And I'm still percolating on how it would all work out. I've got a system. But man, if you'd be
It's
interested in that, you're
it's.
welcome to take part either as the DM or as a patron or whatever when
I
we
mean,
figure it out.
it's definitely interesting. I'd like to get another couple more like mass combats under my own belt. To be
Rock
perfectly
on.
honest, yeah, it's like
Um,
I'm not ready for prime time quite yet.
I do
But
want to point out Brian saying the Gangbusters Braunstein's coming up, and
mm,
that I open that to you as well, Brian, if you want to do it like live, like the real dangerous way.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, so my plan is to run the Battle Brownstein in BrOVENLOFT in
Oh yeah.
in irradiated Ireland. So hopefully I will get a bunch of Irish folklore and stereotypes to go and fight in the muddy fields
Everyone
of
practice your accents now.
right. I mean, so like if I want banshees, I want leprechauns, you know, I want uh I want Fomorians if possible, and
Will o' the Wisps.
yeah,
We're
like
not
just let's go nuts, man.
right on. That'd
Let's
be
lean into
amazing.
the goofiness, right?
Yep. Lucky
So
Charms.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You could fight over a pot of gold. I don't know. The Irish
Right on.
Candyman and all that stuff. I want to break Irish Candyman's domain a little bit, you know.
Well, I
So
see that your icon has a lucky hat on it.
it
Is that a new addition?
yes, that's Mick Moundshroud for this month.
So what is Moundshroud? Where did that come
Okay,
from?
so that came about when I was coming up with BrOVENLOFT stuff because who's playing the River Dancers? That would be hey that'd be a good faction. So Moundshroud is a character from a Ray Bradbury book called The Halloween Tree.
Okay.
And his full name is Carapace Clavicle Moundshroud. And the Halloween Tree is, of course, a story about Halloween. And
Okay.
it got turned into an animated movie in the '90s, where Moundshroud was voiced by Leonard Nimoy. It was a
Oh,
pretty good movie.
perfect.
Pretty good movie. I highly recommend it if it can be tracked down. So it's basically like it's it's Ray Bradbury celebrating and exploring like the history and origins of Halloween stuff and things like that. And so I just kind of figured, yeah, that's kind of a vibe because Ray Bradbury is one of my favorite authors.
He's really good.
And like I don't like it's crazy because I'm not a huge fan of Fahrenheit 451. I think it's really good, but that's not my favorite of his stuff. I like his more like Halloween Tree and more like Something Wicked This Way Comes. I like his more October stuff. And that was
The
perfect. And that
Mars
vibe.
books. Did you read any of that?
Oh, some of his Mars stories, but I don't think I
Okay.
like sat down and read the Martian Chronicles itself. But there were a couple of Mars ones that I read that were kind of neat.
Archer's friend says, "You guys need D&D sportscasters." That might be a little bit of what I'm thinking about,
Well,
Archer.
actually, something that I did think about for
Mhm.
like because we're not really like a critical role type of group,
No.
but if you wanted to really, really, really have some fun and like live stream some stuff, you build like a dungeon that is like basically like most extreme elimination challenge.
Yeah.
And then you have like these characters with stupid backstories and convoluted lost prints, blah 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 garbage, and they just like run through this meat grinder, and then you've got people making fun of them as they fail.
Yeah, yeah, like the
Like,
big balls and
yeah, exactly. Just
the
do a
wall
full
that
blown,
punches
yeah,
them, and yeah,
yeah, just do full MXC with it. Like that would be hilarious.
that would rock. Yeah, I'd watch the
Yeah,
crap out of that.
American Ninja, yeah, sure, but I mean, yeah, but like with the banter from like MXC, like that would be amazing. I don't know how, I don't know when, but yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Well, I'm thinking there's a visual conferencing app
Hmm.
where your characters can walk around, and depending on who they're near, you can hear them. And it's got little tables and stuff. And there's a little podium where, like, if you speak, everyone will be able to hear it from the podium. So I thought one guy could just follow the DM and see what his experience is like as all the different people come in with him one on one in a battle Braunstein and say, "All right, here's what I'm doing."
Hmm.
Give them the news, and other people could just be following them around to the different rooms that they get pulled into for the just to see because I feel like there's a lot of mystery about it, and there's a lot of it that like you can't really make rules about it. It's like you just don't know what it's like till you're in it doing it, you
Right.
know. And I don't
Yep.
know if that would be helpful, or if anybody would even want to watch it, or if it'd be a total failure or whatever. But it's just kind of an idea that's percolating in there.
Oh
So
God, Elfinder. Uh, Hellfinder's got an idea.
Bronstein fish tank in a dungeon. Oh man.
Oh, that's oh, that could get weird. That could get weird.
You got to get voted out in character.
See, that's why I say kayfabe is the most important stat.
That's right. Yeah.
Kayfabe is the most important stat in a BrOSR game, especially when you have multiple characters, right? Especially if you have multiple characters, because your one character will have knowledge, the other character won't, and you got to play that. You have
Yeah.
to play that. Like
Yeah.
that's
And
actually.
they may get at cross purposes to each other.
Hmm.
And you got
Yeah.
to play that too.
Oh yeah. Again, there was going back to Trolopulus and stuff, and going back to the sorceress and the whatever. I had like a backup character that was involved in like with the caveman stuff and exploring that and trying to get that sword.
Okay.
And Flood the Druid ended up getting us kind of all mind controlled by the Marlith. And it was like it was going to be for a while, and I'm just kind of sitting there going like, we don't have to just put the characters off the table, right? We don't have to
Yeah.
just stop playing these characters and hand them over to the DM. With kayfabe, we could play these characters as like we could play them as mind controlled and lying about like whatever, because only the people at this table only the people at this table know that these characters have been mind controlled.
Right on.
That ended up not happening because the cavemen were intelligent and realized something was up about us, and they just put us into quarantine for like however long it took for the charm
Ooga
spell to wear
booga
off.
quarantine.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because like we were just like all in on this sorceress chick. She was beautiful. She was hot. She was gonna give us like she was gonna smile at us and stuff. It was gonna be great.
I Dornell's in the chat. I was there when he had two characters on screen at the same time. One of them was being mind controlled by an evil wizard, and his other character, like we had defeated him, we'd been in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
My character got fried, and his character was making an exit. The guy was like, I forget how many hit points he had left. He was low. He was trying to escape, and Dornall popped out of the shadows and backstabbed his own other character and dropped him at 0 hit points. And it was just like, all right, you can talk about silly voices, but when it comes to actual like role playing, killing your own character, in the moment,
that
it
that's
was
kayfabe. That's kayfabe
amazing.
right there. That's
It was
in-game
amazing.
kayfabe right there. It's beautiful. Yeah, what Elfinder said about Vince being, and that was the other really interesting thing about BrOVENLOFT, because up until that point, the tables were like communicating with each other, the players were communicating with each other, and all that, but there wasn't a lot of cross pollination across tables, right?
Yeah.
So like the Red Frontier was doing their thing, Dubsaron was doing their thing, Trollopolis was doing its thing. I think there were a couple others as well. And BrOVENLOFT kind of like opened the doors for not just characters but actual players
Yeah.
to jump from campaign and campaign and table to table and just see how the other tables play, bring their own dynamics to the tables, bring their own crazy ideas. Because again, you get guys like Vince and Vince McMaximus and Dorinal, and like you get all, like, again, this was a who's who of like the BroSR people in
Oh yeah.
2022. Like it
Elite
was
player.
everybody was bringing ideas and stuff, like as far as they were able to participate in the game, right? So
And
you
so
had,
you're taking these
but
disparate
this is how
parts
you,
of the
yeah,
BroSR and like making a community through this one crazy 2-month event.
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
gelled the BroSR.
It was a cross pollination that worked incredibly well, because one of my favorite moments was, I believe it was Eddie, like I don't think it was Eddie, but it was like one of his lieutenants or whatever. But he had a tank column basically. Um, it was attacking, and then he was going to be attacked by, I want to say, the Pope's Air Force. Um, and so this was before the wish stipulation was locked in, and so like, it was an emergency wish. Like we wish to be out of BrOVENLOFT right now, kind of situation. Or like, no, I think it was like we wish that we went back to where the tanks came from or something. Like, I don't remember what exactly it was, but
Okay.
they wished themselves out of BrOVENLOFT to avoid being destroyed by hostile forces, and then they end up in the Red Frontier inside of a building, and it's an army that is just spilling out clown car style out of this building in the Red Frontier, like all of a sudden, and
Oh man,
it was just the funniest thing to me. And I'm just
that
like,
is hilarious.
that's amazing.
Was there anybody around the building like to see that all of a sudden
I'm
start
sure there
happening?
were, like, yeah,
Like,
like
what the
whatever,
heck?
whatever the locals were, yeah, like
Where are they
NPCs and
coming
stuff.
from?
But it was just hilarious, because like it was it was funny, and there was just, again, that cross pollination of zany ideas. Like, yeah, like each table kind of like decided to throw a bunch of like opportunists.
Yeah.
Macho Mandolph. You had Macho Mandolph and Vince McMaximus on the same table. That's terrifying to a DM who has any hope of controlling the
Yeah.
situation. I
Yeah.
gave up trying to control the situation. So I just thought it was funny.
So at what point did you have that moment where you were like, I'm on the roller coaster, I'm locked in for this ride, I'm just gonna put my hands up and just see where it goes?
Honestly, probably when the Elf King faked his assassination. At
So
that
right
point, I'm
from the
like,
get-go, you're like, I'll
from
bet
the
you're
jump,
off.
I'm like, oh, okay,
Whee!
this is happening. This is gonna happen. I'm not gonna get in the way of this.
What a ride.
Like, I'm gonna try and find ways to like screw the players and everything. Which, again, this is why I recommend multiple rests, because you could delegate things and you could have more time, and you could bounce ideas off on how to come up with those monkey's paws for those wishes, because
Yeah.
that's they need that. They need that. That is a balancing factor on insane player behavior.
Mhm.
And that's something I wish I had more time to
And it could have
think
been
of
just
devious
fun
stuff.
for you to bounce those ideas
Oh
around
yeah,
with those other
absolutely,
DMs and crack each
absolutely,
other up. Yeah.
absolutely. Which is why it's a shame BrOVENLOFT 2 didn't happen this past year, because again, I had recruited a couple DMs.
Are you
Like,
thinking about doing a BrOVENLOFT next October?
yes,
Okay.
yes, I'm addicted to the madness, I think. And I think I think a year off is going to help people replenish their own energy to play it as well.
Right
I
on.
think that's a big factor as well, because it takes a lot out of the players too. Because like you said, like we talked about earlier, if you're playing a patron, you're kind of also always playing
Yeah.
in your head, even if you're not like doing stuff on the map or whatever. You're thinking, you're scheming, you're messaging other players, other
You're
patrons, and
driving and your leg
right,
vibrates and you're like,
yeah,
that could
I
be a
got to take
text.
this. I got to
Yeah, that
take
could be a
this.
text, or I could be being invaded right now.
It's like, oh no, I could be betrayed by Bro
Yeah,
Pan,
yeah.
for example.
Oh man. So you're
So it's
glad you did this, even though it was a
I don't
burnout and you needed a break.
I don't regret it at all. I don't, not one bit. It's the best D&D thing that I've ever run,
It's the best
easily.
D&D thing I've ever even heard of, and I wonder how many people like me are even aware of the BrOSR now because of it.
That would be very flattering because I don't think about in those kind of terms necessarily, but
Yeah,
it did cause waves, and I think it caused a ripple effect outside of just, the excitement and everything that was going on.
yeah.
Because you
Curiosity, excitement, and FOMO, and it for at least I speaking for myself, it put me on the path and trying
mhm.
to figure this stuff out.
And I think also because, again, I didn't have time to run any sessions, so there were no session reports. I know that's I session reports is like the receipts that the BroSR has, and it's
That's right.
unfortunate because I did not have any to give because I didn't have time to run sessions. But that also gives it a legendary quality because it's myth and hearsay and a game of telephone trying to remember details.
It needs to be passed down to from bros that were there to new bros that need to hear the legend.
Oh yeah, Elfinder's got a really good Vince story in there. Yes. That was, I think, in September. Yeah.
He had a player sell his soul to Eddie to stop an army of undead that was controlled by the big bad of Red Frontier that was also patroned by Vince. Man, this
Yeah.
Vince player.
Yeah, and Vince was Eddie. Yeah.
All
So
right, man. Well, I do want to respect your time. We've been going at it for 2.5 hours. I can't
oh
even
wow.
believe that it went by so quick. I've had a
And
lot of fun talking to you about this.
there's more stories of BrOVENLOFT too. I mean,
Oh yeah. Well, for sure I want to do another one like you talked about where we do maybe a round table with
yeah,
if you want to give me a list of some of the people that would be good to invite.
I could try
I
that.
mean
Yeah, I
it's
think
kind of
also.
oh go
Oh no,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say usually like we do an after action report.
Mhm.
This action's a little bit farther in the past, but I think I could probably get some I mean just from the amount of interaction we've had in the chat, I think the players would probably enjoy a chance to get on here and share their stories and what it meant to them and
And
what their
brag,
highs and lows were as well.
because I'm sure a lot of them want to brag
Yeah.
about crazy stuff they did and tried to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's yeah, and also Operation Muscle Thunder would be a good roundtable as well, I
Oh
think,
yeah.
and also a smaller one,
All
much more
right, man.
controllable. So yeah, that was this has been great.
If people want to get more Moundshroud, if they want to follow you or support you, is there anything out there that they should be looking for?
Um, well, okay, so on I put a lot of like the BroSR discussion stuff onto Twitter, so they could get me through at KKALVITIS at whatever Twitter is, you know,
Yep.
X or whatever they want to call it. I still call it
The link
Twitter,
still says twitter.com. So
right? So there we go. So yeah, outside of that, I mean, I'm working on other stuff outside of BroSR related things, but nothing is particularly ready or going to be connected to the BroSR necessarily. So that's not important at the moment.
okay.
So other than that, I mean, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong, like Hulk Hogan says.
And watch for the sound of felt bat wings flapping in the night. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you guys for being with us. I hope I know I had a blast. I feel like I only do these shows for me because I enjoy them so much, but hope you guys had fun being in the chat, and we'll see you for the next one.